Now, happy feel-good Friday afternoon, and welcome to the final edition of 580 Sports Talk for this post-Super Bowl week. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, all here with you today. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. We've got a bunch to get to as we wrap up post-Super Bowl week. A lot to get to from the Super Bowl and the NFL, including our lasting thoughts, final thoughts, anything that slipped through the cracks over the last few days. A lot happened on Sunday last week, 5 days ago, when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. A lot of narratives have come out since then. A lot has happened, obviously, since then. So we'll get to final thoughts, anything we haven't addressed yet, things we want to make sure are covered from Super Bowl 58 here to open up the 2 o'clock hour. Also this hour, we've got some Change My Mind. And I wanted to get to something from Mike Boynton this week, the head coach of the Oklahoma State Cowboys, about NIL and recruiting. Remember what we talked about with Sean Elliott yesterday, the now former head coach of Georgia State? By the way, he got replaced by his strength coach, which is awesome. I would love to see more strength coaches get promoted to head coach. Right. That rules.
I bet those practices are going to be something.
But about the comments about how, it's so hard with NIL and whatever, and like, no, you were probably getting fired anyway, so it's a lot easier to say things like that. I like Mike Boynton. I have for a long time, but something about some comments he made this week really did not sit well with me. So we're going to get to that coming up later on this hour, too. We'll talk some more college basketball leading off the 4 o'clock hour today. Huge games for both KU and K-State this week. KU, last best chance to get a signature road win, because your last, and I emphasize last best chance, because they've got 3 road games left in Big 12 play. They have Oklahoma tomorrow and then Baylor and Houston. Those teams are both really good. Oklahoma's good. Those 2 teams are really good and better home court advantages in both of those places, especially at the Fertitta Center for Houston. So last best chance for a KU signature road win in the Big 12. K-State, meanwhile, you just got to win. You just need to keep winning to make sure you can bolster your NCAA tournament resume. So we'll touch on that and their game against TCU coming up later on in the show today. Also, for the Chiefs, we'll look ahead to the future for the Chiefs championship core. First of all, what is the Chiefs core? Yeah, Mahomes and Kelsey. That's where it starts. What else is the core for this Chiefs team, and how long can they keep the majority of it together to keep contending for titles? We'll look ahead to some offseason storylines around the NFL. We've got our 580 Sports Talk headlines today. What is wrong with you? Change my mind. On second thought, Matt Derrick is going to join us in the 3 o'clock hour as well. All that is coming up over the next 3 hours and 45 minutes or so of 580 Sports Talk. We're off a few minutes early today because Dan Lucero and the coach Larry Latimer will be on the call for our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. Another day of Centennial League action this week.
That's right. We're, for the first time this season, going to head to Washburn Rural, do a home game for the Junior Blues and Lady Blues as they play host to Manhattan. These should be good games. These 2 teams played 11 days ago. The girls' game was a 2-point affair in which the only lead changes happened in the game's final minute, and the boys' game went overtime. So we're hoping for some more down-to-the-wire affairs tonight between Manhattan and Washburn Rural, and myself and Larry Latimer will have the call.
So that is coming up tonight. We'll take 580 Sports Talk right up until the start of pregame coverage for the Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. We'd love to get your texts during the show today, all throughout the show, 785-272-9429. And, of course, our YouTube stream wide open for you as well. Head to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. Hang out with us in the live stream comment section. As long as you have a YouTube/Google account, you can leave a comment for us. Let us know your thoughts on anything we're talking about today. Subscribe to the channel while you're over there. Appreciate the 440 of you who have subscribed to our YouTube channel. We'd love to keep getting those numbers up and up. Real quick, before we get to the Chiefs and Super Bowl 58 final thoughts, I literally just said 4 minutes ago it's a feel-good Friday, only to find out KU just lost its offensive line coach. Are you kidding me?
Oh, that's a drag.
What the heck?
Dang.
Scott Fuchs is leaving KU. He's going to the Tennessee Titans, which, I get it. You get an offer to come be an assistant coach.
So he's
in the NFL.
Is he replacing Bill Callahan?
No. Bill Callahan is going to. I think he's going to be his assistant.
Okay. Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, from John Bryce of Football Scoop. Sources tell Football Scoop the Tennessee Titans are nabbing a top veteran assistant from Lance Leipold's staff to join their franchise as an offensive assistant. I would guess he's going to be their assistant O-line coach. He's incredible. He is phenomenal. What the hell? KU has now lost its best recruiter, its offensive genius play caller, and now one of the most underrated position coaches in the entire country in the same offseason. What the hell?
Brain drain, man.
Yeah.
Did you see the other news Schefter just dropped?
Schefter just dropped. Oh, about the Titans. Yeah, they're making a bunch of hires today.
No, that's not what I was
Oh,
saying.
not that one. Oh, what else did he just drop?
Chiefs are bringing back assistant head coach and special teams coach Dave Tobe on a 3-year extension.
Yes. Okay. Did see he was getting an extension. We'll get to that in headlines too. Yeah, the Chiefs are keeping the whole band together. So that is a positive for the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe that'll come up when we get to the core discussion for the Chiefs in the 3:00 hour today. Throughout the last week, we've been over a lot. We've all been through a lot, obviously, with what happened on Wednesday afternoon too. But from everything we've covered, everything we've looked back on, recapped, analyzed from Super Bowl 58, is there anything to you that stands out that needs to be reemphasized as a lasting image of that game, of this run, of the championship for the Chiefs? Or is there anything that we haven't gotten to that you feel needs to be discussed?
So I watched NFL Turning Point last night.
That is such a good show.
Really enjoyed the show. It's not the full mic'd up that you might see on NFL Network, or I think they actually make the full like Super Bowl mic'd up available on YouTube, so you can watch it if you don't have a cable subscription or anything. And I nothing better to me. I would watch like every single, if you could go back and do a mic'd up of like Super Bowl VI, I would watch that. I like watching the on-field player perspective as the game is happening. And there are some parts of that that are like difficult to watch. It is gut-wrenching to watch Fred Warner react to Dre Greenlaw's injury.
Oh, no!
Yeah, it's devastating to watch that happen in real time as it happens. But there's a clip that is going viral after that show was released of Christian McCaffrey's fumble in the first quarter. And George Kittle is blocking George Karlaftis out of the play.
I saw this.
And then they kind of stop because Karlaftis is, again, he washed out of the play pretty good. George Kittle is an excellent blocker. And then George Kittle, who is at all times aware that he is mic'd. Like some players, you know, they know about it and they goof around with it like a little bit like in the pregame. But then like when they're on the field, it's all business. George Kittle, no. George Kittle is at all times angling for like his own Barstool Sports podcast as soon as his career ends. Like he wants to be the next Pat McAfee. He's looking for the lulls, if you will, if you speak that particular internet vernacular. Anyway, he squares up George Karlaftis and says, "Hi, George." And George Karlaftis doesn't respond because he's too busy getting a jump on Kittle to dive on the loose ball and recover that fumble for the Chiefs. So not the kind of thing that happens if you block through the whistle. I'm not saying that George Kittle should have had eyes in the back of his head, but I still think that play is emblematic, and the overtime decision is emblematic as well of just how much more prepared the Chiefs seemed to be for this, just how much more mentally tough, mentally prepared the Chiefs appeared to be for this game. And we talked about that going into the week, the weeks leading up, the 49ers bringing up old instances of holding and the owner complaining about the last Super Bowl and Nick Bosa taking shots at Jawan Taylor and Donovan Smith through the media. And then it was their field conditions at their practice facility that were an issue. And then the fire alarm going off, the other thing that was an issue. And it just felt like one team was more ready to play, like from a mental toughness perspective, that the Chiefs were more prepared to play than the 49ers were. And it goes back to the point I made on Monday's show, that sometimes you win a championship because you know how to win a championship. Not because you have the better players or the better talent, but because you know what it takes and you're able, within the confines of the championship opportunity, to perform at your best, to be more prepared. And this championship for the Chiefs in this dynasty, more than the other two, is an example of a team that won a championship because they were prepared and knew how to win the championship.
To go off that, when another clip that did go viral on Twitter was the whole going into overtime and the coin toss. Did you see those clips, Brennan?
No, I don't think I've seen these.
So basically, they showed both sides. I haven't watched the whole mic'd up segments, but I saw little bits and pieces on Twitter, just like Dan talked about that one Hey George clip. One of them was in fact going into overtime and Patrick going over to Andy saying, "What do you want to do here?" And he says, "Kick, no matter what, kick." And they obviously had known that strategy. They have a guy in their building that does analysis. That's so they talked about. I'm pretty sure that they've talked about overtime and everything, and knowing the rules and everything like that. Well, when you could see Mahomes when he was in the coin toss, you could see Mahomes' eyes like open up when they said they wanted the ball.
That's I got to check out that clip because I know Mahomes and Reed had both said things about that since the post game or on the post game interviews they did with ESPN and NFL Network and in some of the press times since they've talked about that. That's interesting though that it was to get to see that in action and how bewildered they were by the 49ers doing that. And it's kind of incredible, right? Like you would think if you are the 49ers and the story of your team for the last few years has been you're really good and you've got a great roster and this genius coach and a good staff overall, etc. But you can't win the Super Bowl. That you can get to the biggest game, but you can't win the biggest game. I would think you would almost go into paralysis by analysis mode and you would almost overanalyze things as opposed to appearing to seem not fully focused on what it's going to take to win. To the point Dan was making.
I sent the video to you.
I'll check it out here when we may have a second. About the George Karlaftis and George Kittle clip. My initial reaction when I saw this was, what is George Kittle doing? Like, yeah. I know you're a goofball. I know that's your entire thing, but like maybe not the time. Then I was perusing online, as I often do, and I saw mostly 49ers fans, but some other fans too, saying, how is he supposed to know that something is going on behind him? Like that his job here was to block George Karlaftis out of the play. Karlaftis just ended up, after being blocked away from the play, ended up seeing it. Kittle still had his back turned. What is he supposed to do there?
That's kind of an awareness factor.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Because then I also saw and heard folks saying that they thought it was ridiculous to give the opinion that the 49ers were less focused or were less locked in than the Chiefs. Maybe a couple individual players, but like, look at what Brock Purdy was able to do. Look at X, look at Y, look at Z. Like, maybe if they had gotten blown out, you feel that way, but it's crazy to think that they're unprepared when it was a game right down to the wire. I feel the complete opposite way about that. Maybe if George Kittle was paying a little bit more attention, maybe if Kyle Shanahan and his coaching staff had spent a little bit more time on decision-making and preparing for what overtime would look like, preparing their players to know what overtime was going to look like if it got to that point. Maybe if Deebo Samuel had been a little more locked in on certain things. I saw some people questioning his effort. There's a handful of different small examples all over. If you have a little bit more of that engagement, maybe that's what wins you the game. Maybe that is what puts you over the top and gives you the opportunity to win that game. So I disagree with that notion that I saw. I was just thinking about this yesterday or reading about this yesterday that, it's not like they got blown out. Clearly they were locked in. You're in the Super Bowl. This is the biggest game of your life, of your career, of the, in all likelihood, it is something you have been working toward and striving for your entire life. Every little tiny, seemingly insignificant detail is actually extremely significant. So why wouldn't you be on top of that? And maybe part of it is, hey, our whole thing is we play loose. We want the guys to play loose. We want them to show personality. And that's fine. But then you see George Kittle joking around with a ball rolling on the turf right behind him, and you can't help but think, maybe you should have approached this differently.
Yeah, and in my, after seeing that clip, I know it's not as easy for them to do this because it's the NFL miking them up, but I know when it's the team miking them up, it's very much, controlled.
Mm-hmm.
That, in my mind, if I was George Kittle, I'd have been like, that play is going to make me look really bad. I should see if we can get that scrubbed.
I'm really excited to hear what he has to say about this, if he is going to make a comment about it at some point, because it doesn't make him look good. Because it's like everything when you talk about personality and cockiness or arrogance or any of those things that really show when you talk about personality on the field, on the floor, on the diamond, whatever. It's all great until it backfires.
Yeah.
Like teams that are cocky and have a lot of personality and like to talk a lot, awesome, great. And when you're winning, it looks fantastic. The Chiefs have been through that. Let's go back to 2021, that season. Chiefs losing the AFC Championship game that year to the Cincinnati Bengals. There was a whole lot of jawing from the Chiefs side. They come out on the wrong end. 1 year later, you know who was doing the jawing? It was Cincinnati, and they were winning a bunch, and they got to the AFC Championship game again, and then they lost. And then you've got to wear that. When you're talking a lot, you're taunting, you're bragging, whatever, and it doesn't work out, you've got to own that. I feel like it's the same thing here for San Francisco, right? That being loose, and that's Kittle's thing, and all these other little quirks and whatever, that's all fine. But then when you lose, you've got to own up to it. Honestly, as much as I think the situation was blown out of proportion, it's probably the same thing with the Kelsey situation with Andy Reid, right?
Yeah.
Like the fact that they won, it's two competitive guys. And yeah, Kelsey probably shouldn't have done it. And, you know, the worst people you know online are saying things about it still. But if you had lost and that had happened, then all of a sudden there's talk about were they not focused? Was Kelsey too emotional to have been fully locked in on the game itself? Did Andy Reid lose control of the sideline? Things like that. So the narrative is controlled by the victors. To the victor goes the spoils. The victors rewrite history, however you want to phrase it. But those are the things that get magnified when you're talking about the biggest sporting event in the world.
Yeah, you make a point about the losing part. I remember, obviously, I wasn't here yet. I hadn't even learned about this opportunity coming to fruition yet. It was the next week. But the Bills-Chiefs game, Patrick Mahomes going up to, like, you know, in the post-game handshake line with Josh Allen. Because they lost, that got magnified times a million. When he kind of basically yelled at Josh Allen when he was saying, like, this is bad or whatever. I can't even remember what he said at this point. I just remember that being more significant because they lost. Whereas if they didn't lose, it would have been like, he wouldn't have probably done it, but obviously it was magnified because they lost.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're 100% right about that. So that I'm with you 100%, Dan. That to me is something that I think needs to be, you know, have a light shined on it. And again, is why teams like the Chiefs continue to win and why teams like the 49ers, no matter how much talent they have, no matter how well coached they are, if you don't get the little things right, you're not going to end up winning in the biggest moments more often than not. And again, I was just telling Spencer this a moment ago. You would think when the whole narrative is that your head coach can't get it done in the Super Bowl, is that you have all this talent, but you still can't win the big one. You would think you would overanalyze everything and you would be maybe playing too tight as opposed to maybe playing too loose in the biggest moments. Kind of a weird turnabout from what I would have expected.
Yeah, no kidding. To come up short, to be not communicative. So it does boggle the mind that, well, Kyle Shanahan had a plan, but his players clearly didn't know what it was. Like, it's great that Kyle Shanahan sat down and went through the analytics of it, like he said in his post-game press conference, but shouldn't you clue your players in? I mean, shouldn't you have organizational buy-in to what you're doing? Like, that's where the Chiefs were. They had full-on understanding of what it was that they wanted to do and how they wanted the overtime to go, how they envisioned that going. And the 49ers players were in the dark, not just on the strategy, on the rule itself. How do you let that happen as a manager of people? I
don't know.
A leader. And I'm sure that the more that video comes out and the audio that paints Kyle Shanahan and this team in a bad light makes Kyle Shanahan so mad he's going to go see if he can fire Steve Wilkes again.
Like, it's so basic. It is such a simple thing. I mean, go back to any early level of competitive sports you played. I can give you like junior high basketball. We would go through stuff all the time. Hey, if we get to this situation, we are doing this. Why are we doing this? Teaching moments, things like that. That happens when you're 13, 14 years old. But then you get to the NFL, you should be on top of this. You've got people, Spencer, you pointed this out, and we've heard about it from both teams so far. They've got people whose entire career is making sure that these teams are ready for specific situations in football games.
Oh, yeah, those are your analytics guys, right?
Yeah.
But that's who Kyle Shanahan says he went over it with. And that's great. And I don't necessarily think that it's indefensible to do what Kyle Shanahan did and say, we want the ball first. We want to go put a number up. Their defense is tired. We put all the pressure on them to go down and score a touchdown. Like, I don't agree with it, but I don't think it's an indefensible thing that he did. What is indispensable, what does not track, what will never make sense is how do your players not know? Like, how are you not prepared for every possible eventuality? Like, haven't you been doing this long enough? I mean, one thing, like, this is something you'd expect from like a Nathaniel Hackett coach team to not know the rule or not have a plan. And yeah, championship organizations, winning teams win for lots of reasons. And it isn't always we have the best talent. We have the best guy. For the Chiefs, a lot of it is having the best guy. Like, a lot of it is having the best guy at the most important position. That's pretty huge. But there's all the little things too, all of the details that when you get them right, your details become your habits and your habits become your results. And that's what happened for the Chiefs this season and why they were able to be in the most important moments at the most important time of the season greater than the sum of their parts.
I mean, shoot, if you want to make the argument that part of that attention to detail was sort of an umbrella theme of why Travis Kelce freaked out in the first place after that Isaiah Pacheco fumble, I would listen to that argument. Attention to detail. Hey, I just made a big play. Keep me out there. We're going to run outside. We're trying to get to the perimeter on a run play. I am a better blocker than Noah Gray. Personnel-wise, I should be out there in this situation. If you wanted to spin it that way, I would listen to it and say, you know what? I think you're right. That's how in tune with these things the Chiefs are, and that is why they continue to win in these big situations. It's cross-sport comparison for you. You know who in college basketball is better at this than anybody maybe ever? Bill Self. There's a reason he's won 95% of his 5-point games in his career, because little things like that, knowing when should we foul up 3, when should we not foul up 3, in what situations should we try to put someone on the line, try to attack from 3, get downhill, sag back on defense, whatever. He's the best there's ever been at doing that. And what 2 national championships in the hardest sport there is to win a national championship, all those conference titles, Final Fours, etc. Chiefs, same thing. Got the details right in the big moments, knew what to expect. They knew from the beginning, all week, all 2 weeks leading up, if we get here, what do we do? If we get there, what do we do? They were ready for those things. The 49ers weren't. The Chiefs won on the margins. They won by 1 score in overtime. That's it for me. That tells me the story of the game right there.
And for me, it's why this train isn't slowing down anytime soon. Again, the other part, and maybe the biggest part, is they're still the best guy at the most important position. And he might be Michael Jordan. He might be doing the thing that Michael Jordan did. And just the championship is mine every single year. You have to go through me, and you're not good enough to get through me. It might be that, but also I think you can debate how important, relatively speaking, it is. But I think this is a huge piece of it, is the fact that you have so many of these players who return, and the continuity year over year on the playing roster and the coaching staff helps you to not just get the details right this one time or this one playoff run, to keep getting them right over and over again. And when you get to the point that you do have better talent, because there have been times during this run the Chiefs had better talent than their opponent. I thought they were pretty clearly the best team in 2019 and the better team in that Super Bowl, the better 1 through 53 roster. I thought that was the Chiefs. They were favored in that game for a reason. When they get to that point again with this group, with a defense that is so young and gets a year older and gets to learn and grow together, with Mahomes continuing to mature as a quarterback and put the ball at less risk and make all kinds of plays in all kinds of situations, there's no reason this can't keep improving, and these results can't keep coming.
By the way, while we make one final Michael Jordan comparison here, they obviously had the most talent in the end. I mean, they had 3 Hall of Famers on those dynasty teams, specifically the latter dynasty, the latter three-peat, Jordan and Pippen and Rodman and Kerr and Paxson and Horace Grant, all these great NBA players. You know what else they had? Attention to detail. Go back and watch The Last Dance, which, at least partially propaganda piece, sure. But there was plenty of attention paid to Michael didn't want to run the triangle. He did not want to play what Phil Jackson wanted to play, but they did it, and they paid attention to detail. And guess what happened? They won 6 titles in 8 years. And the only times they didn't win the titles was because Michael didn't play. They had the best guys. They had the best attention to detail, and they won.
And who else did they have? The best coach.
Yep.
They had the best coach.
Yep.
Phil Jackson's either the best or second best coach in the history of the NBA.
And that matters.
Yeah.
It always is going to matter. And Chiefs, again, close game, but they proved because of those things why they were still the better team and the better potential champion than San Francisco was. We'll talk some more Chiefs football a little bit later on in the show. We've got our weekly edition of Change My Mind coming up next, and some comments from Mike Boynton this week that have me kind of fired up. We'll get to those all coming up in this opening hour of 580 Sports Talk. We're just getting started on this Friday edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan. That's Dan. That's Spencer. A little change my mind to lead things off here. Let's see. Where do I want to go? I've got a couple of options here. Let's go with an NFL change my mind. So, change my mind. We are going to see at least 2 more Patrick Mahomes Super Bowls. Super Bowl wins.
The sky's the limit. You can give me any number, and I would say, I think I can see it. I mean, we're at the point in Mahomes' career. 3 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl championships, 4 Super Bowl appearances in 6 years. He's 28 years old. This is the point where Tom Brady went a decade without a ring, right? This is the point in Tom Brady's path where he went a decade without a ring. I think Mahomes is very in tune with the chase and very much would like to supplant Brady. This could be hard to win a third in a row. It's a lot of football. Like, you think about how much football the Chiefs have played. They played 41 games the last 2 seasons. That's a lot of car crashes. To use the to use the terminology that people like to use to describe the collisions that you get in when you play football. It's a lot of car wrecks. And it might be hard to summon that up next year for a three-peat. But I also think Mahomes has 10 plus years of doing this at a really high level. And many of those years will be spent doing it at a higher level than anybody else in the game. So, yeah, 2 more sounds good to me. Yeah, he gets to 5. Look, if he gets to 5, if he gets more than anybody but Brady, that's good enough for me to not listen to any more Brady arguments and just call him the greatest of all time.
So my change my mind is actually kind of relating to yours and then what you just said.
Okay.
So do you want me to go now?
Go for it.
So I don't know if you guys saw this, but I think it's coming in April. I could be wrong, but Apple TV is releasing a documentary called The Dynasty New England Patriots. When it's all said and done for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they'll be the best dynasty in NFL history. That's my change my mind.
That's an interesting way to phrase it, the best in history, because the Patriots one is so, it beggars belief because they happen so far apart.
Right. So do you consider it in 2 pieces, or do you just go 2001 to 2018 as being the Patriots dynasty?
That's how they view it in this documentary, which I was wrong. Also, the first 2 episodes are released today.
Oh, okay. So it's coming out already.
2 episodes will be released every Friday until March 15th. So I thought it was happening later, but I'm just reading the release now.
So I always have viewed it as 1. I know some people view it as 2. I've always viewed it as 1 because the thing is, arguably the 2 best Patriots teams of the entire dynasty, we've said this recently, were 2 teams that lost in the Super Bowl. You can easily, I think, make an argument that 07 and 11 were the 2 best Patriots teams of the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick era.
07 was the best.
07 was undeniable.
Yeah, I don't care that they lost the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That was the best.
Yeah, no, undeniable. Let me rephrase that. I think you can make an argument the second best was that 2011 team that also lost to the Giants in Super Bowl 46. So I've always considered it to be 1. It just lasted for such a long time. Like the Steelers of the 70s, they won a lot. I mean, the Steelers have just won a lot, period, since the 1970s. But all their titles came in a span of 6 seasons, was it? 4 and 6, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
If not 4 and 5.
72, 73, and then 78, 79. I think they were both back-to-back, weren't they?
Yes, they definitely were.
Not 72, that was the Dolphins, but 73, 74?
So they went 74, 75, and 78, 79.
Okay, so they were even closer than I thought. Yeah.
So, 6 years, and they won those championships, or 5 seasons. They won all those championships. Like, that's genuine dynasty.
Yeah.
But that's also 5 years. The Cowboys won their 3 in the span of 4 years.
And that was it. Like,
yes.
Jimmy Johnson was gone. They lost to the expansion Panthers in the year following Super Bowl 30. They lost to the expansion Panthers in the playoffs. That was it.
Yep.
They haven't been back to an NFC championship game since.
It ended very quickly. Very, very quickly.
It ended quickly for the Packers because Lombardi left. And we have a text here from the 785 who posits it may depend on Big Red, Andy Reid, being in Kansas City. It could be that him leaving is what takes the Chiefs down a peg where they're no longer the team to beat in the AFC. But yeah, the longer this thing goes, if they're able to put together like a decade-long run, and let's say they win, it's been 6 years. Let's say they win 2 of the next 4 Super Bowls. Let's just throw that out there. That'd be 5 Super Bowls in a 10-year stretch, which I don't believe anybody has ever done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be greatest of all time to me. I would call it that.
It's interesting too because you can only it's the same sport largely, but even comparing the Patriots to the Cowboys, the two most recent dynasties, so different.
Yes.
Free agency
Early,
and the money and so much of that has changed. The amount of sheer money has gone to a nuclear level. The way the game is covered, the way the game is treated, the analytical data that has been available for the last 20 years versus the 20 years prior, it's so different. So I think, get a much better one-to-one comparison. The only thing I would have a hang up on is just how long the Patriots dominated. But that might just mean that until the end of Patrick Mahomes' career, it's just, it's open-ended, and we just won't know until he retires. And we might get to that point. We absolutely might get to that point someday. So I will not be able to change your mind here, but I will say I need to see the end of Mahomes' career before I can say for sure. That's a good one, though. You're right, Dan. I mean, there's no limit to this. And it's crazy to say 2 of the next 4 guys be reasonable. Like, historically, that's almost certainly not going to happen. Historically, there haven't been many Patrick Mahomeses either.
Yeah.
In fact, I would argue there's been one.
Yeah, I think we're seeing the first, the one of one. We are living in that particular era. I'm going to pivot a little bit away from football to the start of a new season that is happening today. College baseball, college softball getting revved up.
Okay.
Softball's already started.
Yeah,
Softball started last weekend. Baseball starts today. If you want to watch Kansas State in their season opener, that's top 25 ranked Kansas State baseball. They're on the MLB Network tonight.
Ooh,
wow.
So, 7 o'clock first pitch, I believe. They are on MLB Network tonight. If you want to watch the Batcats, you can do so if you have MLB Network. So, changed my mind. Kansas and Kansas State baseball will both play in the postseason. And I don't mean the Big 12 tournament either. I mean, both teams are regional teams.
I am going to disagree with you, and it's not that I'm trying to hate on the KU team. I'm not. I actually love what Dan Fitzgerald has done for KU baseball since taking over last year. The transfer classes have been great. I think he is the right man for the job, and I'm thrilled he's there. I am just in I will believe it when I see it mode. That's the only reason why. I love the talent. I love the potential there. K-State, I think, yes. If K-State doesn't get there, I mean, this season is a crazy disappointment considering how much they'd improved last year. Probably should have gotten into the dance last year. And where they are this year, I'm certain they're going to get in. KU, I just need to see it. I need to see all the pieces come together because we've had some years for KU recently where they've had stretches where it looks like, hey, they're back. And it just hasn't been enough. So I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. I need to see it first before I can go all in on that.
For the record, Kansas State was 5th in the preseason Big 12 poll, the coaches poll, and Kansas was 8th. And I could see 8 Big 12 teams making it to regional play.
It's a great baseball conference.
So, I think it's absolutely within the realm of possibility that Kansas gets there.
With that, let's take it to.
I don't have a lot on this, but I do think a Big 12 team could win the national championship.
I was going to say, how into college baseball are you?
I'm not
guy.
yet. I was kind of into college baseball, but
yeah.
I mean, covering where I covered before, I know that West Virginia has a really good team coming back. So, I think they have a chance to be the national champions this year in the final year of their head coach, as he's going to retire after this year.
I love baseball. I've just never really gotten much into the college game. But hey, KU and K-State
it's
are both playing well.
It's kind of hard to watch college baseball.
Bing!
What?
Bing!
Because it's so, weird. Like, when they play their midweek games, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it is. It's strange.
The midweek games are typically non-conference games.
Yes.
And then you have the conference series on the weekends, the Friday night games, your Saturday and your Sunday games. For the record, TCU, your highest ranked, the preseason favorite in the Big 12, they're top 5 in the country, according to the D1Baseball.com top.
Where's West Virginia?
Preseason. Not ranked.
Interesting.
Yeah, tied for 6th in the preseason Big 12 poll.
Ping! I can't do the noise.
I don't know if they're right on that.
The metal bat, I can't do it. It bothers me. I know that's an old man take. I don't care. It bothers me.
I only don't like watching the West Coast teams because the West Coast teams still think it's the 1960s and they bunt all the time. And it drives me insane. Don't bunt. Hit a dinger.
I will tell you, the College World Series is fun to watch.
Yeah, the energy is great. It's awesome to watch. I had some friends who knew people who actually were playing for that Michigan team a couple of years ago that made a run to a national title.
You got to go. Have you been to Omaha?
Not for the
either of you guys?
No, but it's not
Man.
too far from here, is it?
No, it's about a 3-hour drive. You should make it happen. Like, seriously, if you guys get a chance, make it happen.
I have multiple College World Series T-shirts because while my older sister was in school, South Carolina won back-to-back national titles.
Sure.
So they won the last one in the old Rosenblatt Stadium and the first one in the new stadium. So I've got shirts from both. But no, I've never been. I'd love to go. It's an awesome environment.
Yeah, it's sick.
Will you a timeout when we come back? Something that Mike Boynton said this week that really grinds my gears. That's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan, Dan, and Spencer with you on 580 Sports Talk on this Friday afternoon. We've got a comment here from Sam on YouTube who asks, will K-State and KU sweep their college basketball games this weekend? We'll talk about that a little bit later, coming up in the 4 o'clock hour today.
I thought he was asking about college baseball.
Oh, well, he did say CBB and CBB, so maybe.
For the record, KU is playing UIC, Illinois Chicago, in Corpus Christi, Texas this weekend, while K-State is in a multi-team event playing Cal, Boston College, and Georgetown. I never predict sweeps in baseball because sweeps are hard.
Sweeps are very hard.
So, but yeah, both teams have a pretty good chance to get out with winning records this weekend. Also, text from 785 that asked me to pass along a message to me that bunts rock. That is wrong. Let me tell you how I know. I was a good bunter. I couldn't hit a lick. I'll tell you what, I took pride in my craft. I could get a bunt down third baseline, first baseline. I always snicker and snort when I see players unable to get a bunt down because I could do it. I was the lousiest hitter you've ever seen in your life. They DH'd for me my last 2 years of high school baseball. I never got to pick up a bat, but I could damn sure bunt. And that's how I know they don't rock, because if they rocked, I would have gotten to bat a lot more often so I could have done my thing because I was a wizard in that bunting game. Please believe.
Speaking of
I could bunt for hits, and I was slow as hell. Still am.
being DH4, do you guys remember that viral video? I think it was LSU pitcher.
No.
A few years back, he apparently he came in to hit because they didn't have anybody else on the bench or something, and he hit a home run. And he goes, so the way the post game was, it was him and the coach, and he was like, "Yeah, I did that in high school." And then he goes, "Just kidding, coach. I never hit in high school." It was the funniest thing ever.
That is pretty funny. That's really funny.
And the coach goes, "Really?"
Real quick from college basketball, I wanted to get to this. If we can get audio here real quick. This is Mike Boynton from Oklahoma State talking about the difficulties with the state of recruiting and NIL right now in college basketball. Take a listen to Mike Boynton.
Recruiting's never been a challenge until recruiting became not recruiting anymore. Like what I had to do to get Cade Cunningham here was way more difficult than what it takes to get players on campus now. It's not even the same thing. It took 4 years of making sure I was there more than Bill Self and making sure I was there more than Roy Williams and making sure I was there more than all these other coaches who had national championships and Final Fours and all these NBA guys. I had never coached a guy in NBA as a head coach. I hadn't coached an NCAA tournament. But over time, the relationship mattered enough that he believed that I was going to do the right thing by him. I can't work that hard anymore. Not when you can say, here's $500,000 to come spend 9 months over here. I like you, coach, but I might get hurt this year, man. And all you got is a scholarship for me.
I would like to make one thing completely clear. Mike Boynton hired Cade Cunningham's brother to work for Oklahoma State to secure Cade Cunningham's recruitment.
Does he think we forgot?
I like Mike Boynton. I do. I've gotten to talk to Coach Boynton a number of times at Media Day. I like the way he handles himself. And I think players really respond to him. And I think he cares about his players. He made that clear when they went through their NCAA sanctioned issues a few years ago. I like Mike Boynton. This is crap. This is crap. Okay? This is a coach who's about to get his ass fired because his team stinks. And he's got his back against the wall, and he is doing anything he can to make it seem like it's not his fault. Just like Sean Elliott at Georgia State football, literally yesterday, talking about how do we compete with NIL? How do you compete anyway, brother? Mike Boynton's team stunk before NIL. NIL legislation went into effect when? Summer of 2021. Here's a question for you. Was Oklahoma State a winning program under Mike Boynton in conference play prior to NIL?
No.
They were winning 40% of their games in conference play before NIL.
Yeah, the only time they were even better than a 500 team was the Cade Cunningham year.
Listen, is it stressful? Is it more stress on a coach now, or at least different stress than it was before? Yes. Are your hours different as coaches now with fewer dead periods, year-long recruiting, the NIL stuff? You got to work with collectives, your athletic department, things like that. Yes, it is very difficult. Don't use that as your only excuse why your team's no good.
Yeah, you don't have good players. And if
it ain't just because of the NIL.
Yeah, if that's the excuse you want to use, I just, it's harder to get good players. Well, other people are doing it. Why can't you? Like, if it's really an NIL issue, then there's a way you can make a plea to your NIL collective in Stillwater, whoever that might be, and you can work with them behind the scenes and say, hey, look, we got to work harder. We got to think outside the box. We got to fundraise a little differently because we do have to be more competitive in this space. It's one thing to say that. It's quite another to sit up on the podium and say, blue, 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 this is why I can't do my job. This is why we're 2-9 in the Big 12 is because recruiting's too hard and I can't find another guy to hire with a brother who's a number 1 overall draft pick.
Come on, man. He hired his brother. He got 2 years at OSU, and then he was out on the curb again. You know what he was doing 2 jobs prior to Oklahoma State? He had 1 year at Tulane. You know what he was doing before that? He was coaching middle school basketball.
Yeah.
He went
AAU stuff.
Like, dude, come on. And again, I wanted it to work for Mike Boynton, and frankly, it has. He has gotten multiple years more at Oklahoma State than I thought he was going to get. But this is going out sad. This is a good guy going out sad. It does not have to be this way. You hired his brother, man. Give me a break. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, we'll talk about the future of the Chiefs championship core. Matt Derrick is going to join us, and we've got this week's On Second Thought. All that's coming up after the news right here on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, just getting underway. I'm Brendan Dworzynski, Spencer Dupuis alongside. Dan Lucera will be in the booth coming up in just a moment. Thanks for spending some of your Friday afternoon hours with us. No more Red Fridays. What a bummer. No more of those until we get to September.
It's a long time.
In fact, it won't even be week one because the Chiefs are going to play Thursday night to open the season.
Yeah.
So
it'll be a Red Victory Friday, hopefully.
Yeah, it'll be Victory Friday, and we won't get
or sadly Red Misery Friday.
yeah. Loser Friday, but hopefully what we're going to avoid coming up in just a few months away, start of the NFL season again. But we've got some more Chiefs football to get to coming up in this hour. We'll hear from Matt Derrick in a little bit. We'll talk about the core of this Chiefs team in just a moment and how well the Chiefs can try to keep that core together. We've also got this week's On Second Thought coming up. We'll talk some college basketball later on in the 4 o'clock hour, some general NFL storylines we'll be paying attention to going into the offseason. 580 Sports Talk headlines and more coming up the rest of the way on 580 Sports Talk today. Your texts are welcome. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. You can also find us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, search 580 Sports Talk. There you can find our channel. Make sure you subscribe to it. And that is also where you can go and hang out in our live stream. Watch us all show long. We are streaming video on YouTube. Drop a comment. Let us know your thoughts on anything we're talking about on the show today.
Shout out to those listeners watching on our Facebook as well.
Yes, the Facebook also streaming there. We've got the stream going on Twitter. Some of you might call it X. I don't. A lot of different places where you can watch the YouTube stream today, or the video stream, I should say, today and every day.
The official stance of this member of the 580 Sports Talk team: if you call it X, you're the feds.
Yeah, I learned I don't call it X because it's just weird to say.
It's terrible to say.
It is. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. He X'd it. He tweeted it. Like what does that even mean? I don't know. But I will say one of the first things I learned about Dan was that he has not updated his app to show the X logo.
Nope.
It still has Twitter.
Still got the bird, baby. Still flying the bird.
I updated it because it was just not functioning. I got a new phone, and when I updated it, it wouldn't let me keep the old app. I used the shortcuts app function you have on the new phones, though. You can't really see it because our cameras are much zoomed out. I have the Twitter logo on the app. It just then opens X. It's ugly and it's a dumb name. And hey, Elon, you want to pay me? Go for it. I'll call whatever you want. You're gonna pay me for it.
Exactly. It's like Arrowhead Stadium. If GEHA would like to run me a check to call it GEHA Field Arrowhead, I will do it faithfully every single time.
The Carrier Dome. It's not the
JMA Wireless Arena?
No, it's the Carrier Dome. And until JPA Wireless is going to pay me, that's what I'm going to call it. So not interested.
Me
in that.
Personally, I can't wait to make all of my business transactions and also make phone calls on an app where every time I post anything, I get a response from a bot that says my link in bio, or maybe something else in their bio that I can't say on the radio.
Or just a nude picture.
Yes.
That's clearly stolen from someone else.
Yes, very, very good and working app. The version of Twitter I have on my phone, which is still Twitter, so I got the birdhouse and the whole thing. The search functionality no longer works. Like I can't go search for like old tweets or anything like that. It completely bricked. Don't care. I would rather use the app as Twitter without the search functionality than ever update it to that ugly ass X.
So are you never going to get a new phone now?
I'm not in a hurry to get a new one. This one works fine. It's huge. It takes good pictures. Like, what am I in a hurry to get a new phone for?
No, but I mean, the one day when you finally do, you're going to have to say goodbye.
I mean, at some point you might have to. I was not expecting to get a new phone. Then all of a sudden I got a call one day that said, we're switching to AT&T. You're getting a new phone. So that's why I got a new phone.
I miss the old Twitter clients, like the apps that could emulate Twitter. Like
Tweetbot?
I did. I was a big Tweetbot guy.
I miss TweetDeck on the desktop.
Oh, I miss it every day.
There is a way you can get it. You have to
you have to pay.
Well, no, not to pay. Like the old version of it, you have to go into like your Google Chrome settings and like unflag a bunch of stuff and enter some code, and you can get it. But it's well above my pay grade.
When I was recently at a KU game, I saw somebody on the media level right below me had TweetDeck, and I was like, wait, that's still a thing? And then I was like, oh no, they pay for the Twitter verification.
Depending on who you saw who had that on their computer, they may have had a column that was just searches for their own name. But that's a story for another day. Anyway.
I don't even know what you just said.
No, I'm not talking about anyone in particular. Maybe not. Maybe if you're a former newspaper editor. Anyway, moving on to what I wanted to get to lead off this hour about the Kansas City Chiefs and the core, the championship core of this team. The first two Super Bowls, 54 and 55, win and a loss respectively. It was Mahomes, Kelsey, Tyreek Hill, Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu, probably throw the Honey Badger in there.
Sure.
Like that was the group. That was the core group, veterans plus the quarterback. That was, those were the guys you said, these are the star pieces of this team. You build around those guys. That has obviously since changed. Mathieu, no longer there. Tyreek Hill, no longer there. For now, Chris Jones has been there. He's been there for the last two championships. So before we get to the future for this group, I'm curious how you guys would define this Chiefs core. And Spencer, I'll ask you first, being less familiar with these guys, just less so with this team, and being thrust into Super Bowl coverage pretty quickly. But if you were going to pick, a handful of guys you feel like are the central core of these championship Chiefs over the last 2 years, and especially this year, what would you say is that core group?
Patrick Mahomes, I should say. Travis Kelce.
Yep.
On the offense, I don't really know where to go.
No, I think that's entirely fair. I mean, do you say Pacheco is a part of that? Do you say is part of the interior of the offensive line, Smith, Humphrey, Tooney, is that part of it? You're not putting a wide receiver in there. I think Rashee Rice looks like he is going to be a part of that.
Like the next phase of a core, he would certainly be part of it.
But defensively, I think it's easier to come up with guys, honestly.
You put Chris Jones in there.
Yep.
You put L'Jarius Sneed in there.
Sneed, I think McDuffie probably. Nick Bolton, you can certainly make an argument for. I mean, are there any others you would add on to that?
I don't think so. Maybe Karlaftis, because he was
sure.
I mean, he's 10.5 double-digit sack guy, and it's funny when you think about core guys. You also tend to think about guys who you consider like leaders, whether that's statistical leaders or whether it's emotional leaders, captains, actual captains. It's an interesting question with this team in particular because again, you go back to the whole point for this year in particular about the whole being greater than the sum of the parts, where if I say that on offense, like, is Trey Smith part of that core? You can't think of Trey Smith without thinking of the job that Creed Humphrey has done right next to him these past couple of years. And then, right next to Creed Humphrey, you've got an all-pro. With the secondary, Trent McDuffie an all-pro. Yeah, but L'Jarius Sneed should have been. And but like the guys on the back end, like Justin Reed, is he a part of this conversation? I think that he maybe deserves to be in that conversation as well.
The text line I was just going to say as well from the 785. You have to talk about Harrison Butker.
Right now, he might be the best in the business.
Yeah, but he's been there for all three.
It's weird.
And he has a record for field goal long distance in the Super Bowl now.
It's weird to think about a kicker as a core player, right? But there are exceptions to every rule, and Harrison Butker has been nothing if not exceptional for this Chiefs team. Clutch kick after clutch kick. I mean, think about some of the games that the Chiefs have won over the course, even of just these last few years. The game-tying field goal at the end of the divisional round, the 13 seconds game. The winning field goal at the end of the AFC Championship game, not this past season, but the season before that. The winning field goal in the Super Bowl. The tying field goal in this year's Super Bowl. A lot of big kicks for Harrison Butker in his Chiefs career. No question about that. And so if ever there was a kicker to consider as a core piece, maybe it is Harrison
he
Butker.
also has most career field goals in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's been great. I
feel like you have to count him.
He was a practice squad signing in 2018. Was 17. That when they 17 when they signed him? So it was the last Alex Smith year. He was signed off the Carolina practice squad. That's pretty impressive. Do you remember who their kicker was at the time?
The
I believe
Chiefs
it's
kicker?
no, he replaced Cairo Santos.
Yeah, he replaced Santos.
No, I was thinking of Carolina. I think it was someone who was really funny.
Eddie Pinheiro, somebody like that.
Was it Fat Randy at the time? It was Graham Gano.
Graham Gano.
Who actually was pretty good that year.
I know the story of Graham Gano.
He kicked 30 field goals that year, made 29 of them. One of them was 50 plus. Harrison Butker right now, you could make an argument easily is one of the best kickers of all time. And in terms of postseason production, he is right next to Adam Vinatieri as the best of them.
Yeah.
He might not be able to touch Vinatieri yet, but he's made several of the biggest kicks in the history of the sport.
This made me laugh, Sam, on the YouTube comments. The core Chiefs are all listed in Tech Nine's Red Kingdom. that is a pretty fair way to evaluate it.
No, that's fair.
If you get in the song, you're a core member of the team. Like if you get left out of the song, you're not in on the core. That's a good way to think of it. Here's another question for you though. Like because I guess it depends on how you define core pieces, right? But for me, the core is you can't imagine things working with somebody else in that spot. And that's why, obviously, Mahomes is there. And that's a compelling argument for Butker. And it's an argument for Kelsey and Jones. And then after that, it gets interesting, right? Like, is there anybody else who you think, hey, they could maybe find a guy who could do this job? Or is this just like a guy who's, just happens to be a really good player? And you could find another player like this, but he's just a likable guy and he's made some good plays and some good moments. That's why I wonder if maybe when considering the core of this team, you consider like Steve Spagnuolo part of the core.
Oh, yes. I would say 100%. I mean, I'll give you the three coaches. Andy Reid, not the only three coaches, but I'll give you Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, and frankly, you probably have to include Dave Toub in there. Dave Toub gets an incredible amount of roster pull for being a special teams coordinator.
Marcus Kemp owes him his career.
Yes. Reese Fountain probably does too. There's a number of guys who probably owe their careers to Dave Toub. And he's been doing it for so long and has been so successful. You probably have to factor him into the group. That's an interesting qualifier you bring up, or an interesting way to define it. Because if we're going to go with that, you can't imagine someone else in that spot and having this kind of success. I would give you five. I would give you five players. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, and the other three are on defense. Chris Jones. Chris Jones has been incredible. He really, really has been incredible. And I'd give you both corners for the last 2 years. I'd give you both McDuffie and Snead.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Like, when we talk about Spags was able to do so much of what he was able to coordinate and dial up this year because he had trust in those two. You're going to get the job done. Whatever your assignment is, you're going to do it right. And I think to have both of those is so big.
And they became the identity of the defense this year. Like,
yes.
I think in the years before, it was Sack Nation, right? It was Chris Jones and Frank Clark. It was Sack Nation. And not as though Chris Jones wasn't prolific this year in the sack department. Like, he's had better years, but he was still got his double-digit sacks, got his bonus. There was no Frank Clark, so there's no, whatever office he held. If Chris Jones was the mayor, I don't know if Frank Clark was the deputy mayor, or what the separation of powers was there in the Sack Nation government, or however they parceled out that particular power or credit or whatever. But that was the identity of the defense, was formed by those guys and being Sack Nation. This year, the identity was the back end. The identity was on defense. It was McDuffie making plays, stripping the football, locking down guys. It was L'Jarius Sneed following your number one wide receiver around in a way that very few defensive backs do in the league anymore. We talked about that during the season. There aren't a lot of those guys in the league that follow around the number one and just don't let him do anything. And all year long, L'Jarius Sneed did that for these Chiefs. And you look at the numbers that number one wide receivers put up against the Chiefs this year. They were invisible. They were straight-jacketed by L'Jarius Sneed. So that was where the tone was set for this year's defense, was the work of the defensive backs, and it was Sneed and McDuffie leading the way.
Those two are so integral to what it takes for this Chiefs team to do what it wants to do. I think you have to factor them in there. Everyone else, though, I think you can make an argument that you could theoretically see a replacement there. And a great example of that, Joe Thuney was replaced in the Super Bowl. And not his fault. He got injured.
Right.
But You hear Nick Allegretti's name during the Super Bowl?
No.
Was Nick Allegretti out there costing was he Mike Remmersing out there?
No, he was not.
No, he was not. Creed Humphrey, awesome player. You know what else he did? He rolled the ball to Patrick Mahomes multiple times in the Super Bowl, including on an attempted touchdown pass to Travis Kelce, which probably threw off the timing of that play. That's the one that got Rashee Rice all ticked off because he thought he was open. Maybe Mahomes sees him if he has more time because the ball actually got to him. You could see something different there. Trey Smith, probably a similar argument. The guy, his counterpart at the left guard spot, Tooney, like I just said, he was not there. Linebacker. The Chiefs had so much talent at linebacker this year. Like if Nick Bolton hadn't played in the Super Bowl, and this isn't a shot at Nick Bolton, he's a really good player. But like if the Chiefs had to run with Tranquil, Gay, and Chanel as their three linebackers, plus, Darius Harris from the practice squad, could they have won the Super Bowl this week with that group?
I think they probably could have.
I think they probably could have.
And the evidence was that when Bolton was injured for a good chunk of this season, Tranquil came in and held the fort. And Chanel was maybe their best linebacker in the group and maybe the most important defensive player in the Super Bowl, arguably.
Yeah, in a Super Bowl in which you could have made an argument for multiple defensive players to win Super Bowl MVP, Leo Chanel would have been near the top of that list. Like if after Patrick Mahomes, the next three that I would have picked to win MVP would have been in some order: Trent McDuffie, Chris Jones, Leo Chanel.
It's amazing that Chanel's this kind of player.
Yeah.
Another mid-round pick. And, a lot of times with those players, you evaluate them based on what they can't do. But Leo Chanel's very explosive, very athletic, and has just steadily improved in 2 seasons on the Chiefs defense. And I think part of the reason that the Chiefs have very clearly signaled in some way or another to Willie Gay that his services are not going to be required moving forward is because they have a lot of faith in Leo Chanel to perform some of those same duties.
That's exactly what I was about to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of incredible talking about the 49ers talent so much, but talking about the Chiefs and what they have been able to do with their talent. And it might not be superstar brand name talent, but it's enough that you can let a guy like Willie Gay, who's really talented and really useful, walk away. That tells you a lot about the depth of this Chiefs team. The follow-up, though, to all of this is how long can, however you want to define that core group, how long can they stay together? And maybe more importantly, how much of that group do you need to stay together to stay in this position that the Chiefs are currently in? And I guess, again, depending on how you view it, maybe if it's the one you just brought up where you can't imagine someone else in their spot, well, that makes this offseason an even bigger deal for the Chiefs because both Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed are up for new contracts.
Yeah, makes it all the more vital that you try and bring back at least one, if not both of those guys. And I think if the Chiefs can make that work, that would be their preference. I'm sure they're in the lab right now trying to concoct a solution that keeps them within the salary cap and enables them to sign some draft picks and lets them keep around 2 of those guys. But the reality of it is, they might lose one of those 2 influential players. And Travis Kelce I don't want to say he found the fountain of youth. That's too reductive. Yeah. I think Travis Kelce was hurt early this season. And I think Travis Kelce dealt with the nagging knee injury that he suffered 2 days before the season opening game and the ankle sprain that he suffered in Minnesota. I think that weighed him down for the better part of this regular season. And getting that week off at the very end rejuvenated him. And we saw what we can expect to see, I think, from Travis Kelce moving forward. Now, that is, again, barring some other dings and dents that he might accumulate as he gets further into his mid-30s, which is, not a time when most NFL players, particularly ones at physically demanding positions like that, continue to produce at a high level. But Kelce himself has said it. He's closer to the end than he is to the beginning. We're closer to the decline phase of Travis Kelce. Truth be told, that's probably already begun.
I mean, he admitted as much.
Than we are to peak Travis Kelce. So what then becomes of, do you sort of shift the focus of the core at that point where Rashee Rice replaces Travis Kelce, not as tight end number 1, obviously, but he becomes fulcrum of the passing game. Guy who makes the passing game work by virtue of his skill set. Maybe it's Trent McDuffie moving into L'Jarius Sneed's role of, I'm going to follow you around and straitjacket you if L'Jarius Sneed doesn't come back. I don't know who replaces Chris Jones. There aren't a lot of Chris Joneses out there. But even if the Chiefs do re-sign him, he enters his 30s. There have been very few pass rushers who have been prolific pass rushers well into their 30s. Most of the guys that we would throw at you are future Hall of Famers. I happen to think Chris Jones is in that class, but that's an open question.
There's one guy out there, real quick, Spencer, if you're going to talk about trying to replace Chris Jones, there's one guy out there who's a free agent who I would say I would pay him top dollar to come in and fill that exact role. The problem is I don't think that he's actually going to end up getting to free agency, and that is someone the Chiefs played in the AFC Championship game. Justin Madubuike is a free agent this year. If the Ravens let him go, that would be, I think, a blunder by Baltimore that team does not make. Their front office is as good as any in the NFL. I think Eric DeCosta does a great job for them. Ozzie Newsome before him. They are tremendous at what they do. I don't think he's actually going to end up hitting free agency. I assume he'll get either tagged or get an extension before March 15th or whatever the new league year date is. But if he ended up hitting free agency and you could pay one guy top of the line, market resetting free agency money to bring them in, that's the one. Like, no, there are good players who are going to be available.
Yeah, that's the one outside the organization. Yeah, you give the big multi-year contract to. Ian Rappaport reporting in the last minute here that the Chiefs have picked up the option on Chris Jones's contract, which is just kind of a procedural thing. It pays him his incentives, and it reserves the right of the Chiefs to franchise tag him.
Yeah.
So this is not like, oh, they picked up his option, he's coming back. Not really what it means.
No.
But it does give the Chiefs the right, if they desire, to franchise tag him again.
Yeah, that makes some sense. I cut you off. What were you going to say?
My point was going back to giving somebody into their 30s a contract. He's a little bit older than Chris Jones would be, but maybe depending on the years, if they were to re-sign Chris Jones, is we saw what Von Miller did in his first year on that contract in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
But then this year he had no sacks.
Yeah.
He had 8 sacks in 2022, 0 sacks, playing one more game this year in 2023. So,
yeah, but we're also talking about a player now dealing with 2 ACL tears.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference in terms of his health history.
You are correct.
Yeah. Made him a bit more of a gamble. He had the one that took him out in 2015, and then he had another one last year. He came back this year, obviously not the same guy.
No, not even close to the same guy. We've got our On Second Thought coming up next, and Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider, will join us later on this hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. On second thought time, before we get to Matt Derrick, mea culpas, apologies, whoopsies from the past, I don't know, days, weeks. Mine is a pretty easy one. I told you yesterday how excited I was to get back on the grind for America East Thursday. Then I was driving home from the Washburn Coaches Show, and I realized, oh, shoot, it's Thursday. I completely forgot.
Okay.
I didn't even open FanDuel on my phone yesterday. I just totally zoned out. I was busy. That's life. So we're postponing till America East Saturday this week. We're actually going to bet on the Saturday games.
Okay.
Which I normally
There you
don't.
go.
I usually stick just to the Thursdays, but we'll go to America East Saturday this week because I need a bounce back. It is making me feel so much pain that I was so bad last week. But yeah, after all that talk yesterday about getting back on the horse, I just left the horse.
You neglected.
I
to
neglected the horse.
even enter the barn.
No, I just left it outside.
Nowhere near. I think all my takes were right this week. I'm racking my brain. Spencer, do you have an on second thought?
Yeah, not a take that I talked about on the radio, but I did tell you guys yesterday I got my futon got delivered.
Yes, you did.
And I was like, oh, it came in, I got it like 10:40, and I was like, let me just head out instead of, wasting the time to put it together in the morning.
Mhm.
It'll be quick, easy. I can put it together, watch some TV last night. Well, I open it and I'm like, oh, cool. It's got like the Allen wrench thing. I was like, that's pretty easy. All furniture has that. And then there's 4 screws in every leg, and there are no holes for the screws. There were holes for the Allen wrench ones. So I was like, all right, well, I have a screwdriver, but the regular screwdriver is not going to start a hole for you. So I was like, I'll go to the store and buy an electronic screwdriver because, those are always nice to have. Well, I'm like, yeah, it's a little piece of furniture. Don't need, like $100 DeWalt screw gun or whatever. So I go buy like a $15 one at the store, come home, and it has exactly enough power to not have anything, not put it maybe like 3 rotations into it. So I'm like, what in the world do I do? So shout out to Dan. Dan had an electric screw gun that had a little bit more power than the one I had. So he let me use it earlier today. I went home during lunch, and we now have a futon. But I thought it was going to be really easy to put that thing together last night. And on second thought, I was wrong.
I am glad that you have a couch now.
Yes.
Sometimes you got to pay up. Sometimes you can't cheap out on things.
Yeah.
Then you end up spending $15 and then you're out $15 for nothing.
Yeah.
No, that'll be fine. I mean, you'll use it for something else, I'm sure. I do have on second thought. I did not think that Kyle Shanahan was going to be able to scapegoat anybody for losing Super Bowl 58, and then he axed Steve Wilkes.
That's fair. Yeah,
I'm just impressed with his ability to shift blame.
Coming up next, Matt Derrick will join us for our Chiefs Insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Let's go to Kansas City, where we chat with our good pal Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. You can find all of his work over at Chiefs Digest covering the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick is his handle there. Matt, I said we're going to Kansas City, or are you still hitting the tables in Vegas?
I am not. I am in chilly, cold, wintry Kansas City.
Yeah, this weather sucks. I'm sure I know the weather wasn't great for Vegas when you guys were out there for the Super Bowl, but I imagine coming back to this was not a very pleasant welcome home.
No, I feel like I'm getting pretty much the worst of it because I know it was nicer in Kansas City while we were in Vegas. And now back here, I haven't looked at the weather in Vegas, but it's not snowing in 32, so I know that.
Matt, when you look back on Super Bowl 58 and what it took for the Chiefs to win and just the way the Chiefs won, what sort of lingers in your mind? What stands out in your mind about why the Chiefs were able to come away with the win, whether it was because of something they did or something that San Francisco did? What is the biggest reason why to you the Chiefs were able to pull this off?
I mean, I think there were a lot of things, but obviously the biggest one to me is going to be the one that I think we say a lot. One team has Patrick Mahomes and the other team doesn't. As good as the Chiefs defense was, as questionable some of the things that Kyle Shanahan, I think, did, ultimately, I mean, the reason why the Chiefs have, in 6 years, this guy's been a starter, have won 3 Super Bowls is because they have him and nobody else does.
Is that the only reason why, or the biggest, most important reason why the Chiefs are going to continue to be in this position? Because we were talking about the championship core of this team just a little bit ago, and it's coaching, and it's Kelsey and Chris Jones, at least for now, and the 2 cornerbacks, and maybe Bolton, maybe the offensive line, so many different pieces. But as long as 15 is in red and gold, does it matter? Like, does it really matter who all is around him if they've got that guy there?
I mean, we're going to find out because, there's a handful of players that obviously Mahomes hasn't played without. I mean, he hasn't played a Super Bowl without Chris Jones or Travis Kelsey. I mean, those are the 2 that stand out because I think those are 2 guys that have Hall of Fame type resumes. Travis for sure. I think Chris Jones is going to be a Hall of Famer myself. I mean, he's got a few more years to put up some numbers, but and good grief, if he gets the 4th ring, I mean, I think that would just solidify it. But even with his numbers and 3 rings, that might be enough to get him in. But so we'll find out. I mean, once the couple of guys like that are gone, we'll see if that makes a difference. But I mean, to me, this season, look at it. I mean, the Chiefs had number 2 scoring defense in the league. Niners were number 3. Ravens were number 1. You're right there in that category that you can have one of the best defenses. There were other teams that had better offenses than the Chiefs this year that they took out in the playoffs. And I look around and it's like, okay, well, we've got all of these quarterbacks that are out there, but Josh Allen doesn't have a ring. Lamar Jackson doesn't. Joe Burrow doesn't. Patrick's got 3. So that to me tells you a lot about just, that's the thing. What is it? How many rings? I forgot that the rest of the quarterbacks in the league have compared to Patrick right now. I mean, that's to me the difference is that you've got him. And so, no, you don't, that you don't need the best defense in the league. You don't necessarily have the best offense. You kind of just need to get into the tournament. And half the time, it seems like, at least at this point, this guy's going to get you there.
Answer's 3, I think, isn't it? Of starting quarterbacks.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
I think it's 3 and 3.
3 total rings: Wilson, Stafford, and
Rodgers.
Yeah, those are your starting quarterbacks with.
I guess Joe Flacco is still around.
Oh yeah, Flacco and Foles. Is he hung it up, right? So.
I don't think he's officially retired, but I mean he's not playing anywhere. That's crazy. I hadn't even considered that, Matt. That's sort of wild to think about. Outside of QB1, though, if you had been able to vote for someone else, if they said quarterbacks are off the table, who else would have gotten the vote for you for Super Bowl MVP?
Well, the first ballot was going around at the end of the 4th quarter, and this was before Mahomes did anything. Was the last minute heroic. So my vote at that point would have been for Harrison Butker. I mean, that guy with the 4 field goals, including 2 long ones, including the longest one in Super Bowl history. And frankly, if he had been called on to maybe have to, kick a couple in overtime, maybe he would have won it. That would have been my guy at one point in the game. But tell you what, you could have gone a lot of different directions, because even though it wasn't necessarily a statsy kind of game, Trent McDuffie had an incredible Super Bowl. There were a few others. I mean, I think you'd have to include even some of the Chiefs' offensive guys. Marquez had a couple of big catches. McCole had a couple of obviously huge plays. I guess after Travis and Patrick, I guess McCole was the biggest superstar because he's the one that ends up on Jimmy Kimmel. So maybe you'd have to go with McCole.
Our guest is Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. He's our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk, and he joins us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline every Friday at this time on the program. Check out Matt's work at ChiefsDigest.com. Check him out on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, maybe aside from Butker or McCole Hardman catching the game-winning touchdown, which Chief in this game maybe raised their profile the most?
Oh, good question. I mean, I would think that based on the body of work on the season 2, but just also the spotlight, I think the other guy's L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, and the reason I just say that is because I think he is just still tremendously underrated. I mean, Trent McDuffie was an All-Pro, but L'Jarius Sneed wasn't. And I think that, hey, hopefully all of those eyeballs that got to be on L'Jarius to see a bit of the spotlight and see what he was doing against these 49ers receivers and the physical nature in which he plays, hopefully that gets him over the hump. I mean, at some point you can, in this game at least, you can get some accolades based on reputation, and L'Jarius deserves some of those. I mean, he probably deserves, now on the back end of his career, if he's going to start getting named to Pro Bowls and getting All-Pro nominations, he deserves to have a couple added onto the back end of his career too, because he's, I think, already been cheated out of at least one, if not maybe 2 All-Pro nominations. But that's the guy, I think, especially going into free agency. I mean, I don't think you could have asked for a better season and a better game in particular at the right time than the one for L'Jarius Sneed.
Did anything in particular stick out to you from the aftermath, from the celebration or the press conferences or any of the comments from the Chiefs players after the game? Was there anything in particular that maybe stood out to you and is maybe still sticking with you about how this team reacted to winning this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that was going to stand out to me, I think, is just the kind of atmosphere and tone of the team after the game, because at 54, there was an elation. There's no doubt about that. I mean, but it was kind of a combination of things. It was the elation of having the monkey off the team's back and the franchise off of Andy Reid's back. I mean, there was no doubt. I mean, so much of the happiness in that game in particular was just winning one for Andy. And they felt the same kind of pressure that he felt to finally win the big one. And so getting that for him was a big deal. Last year's was kind of almost a relief. I mean, because they felt like they really gave it away the year before, and you're losing to one to Tampa, that would hurt. But, the collapse that they had against the Bengals really in the second half last year really kind of hurt. And they wanted to prove something. So last year kind of came as a relief. This one, I mean, Patrick said that, hey, this one might be the sweetest of them all, just based on the journey that they had to go through. This wasn't the easiest. They had to struggle. And I like you said, it was almost a combination of those two feelings. I mean, this was certainly joyous. There was no doubt about that. I mean, these guys were proud and happy for what they'd accomplished. But then you just also saw how much this season had really taken its toll. I mean, this was a hard-fought one all the way through, and including in the game itself. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of guys on this team who've been through all 3 of them who will say that this one might be the most meaningful to them because this one was the most challenging.
We're joined by our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick, on the Fleming's Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And Matt, we talked about it, I believe, last Friday before the big game, how much of an impact Derrick McKinnon would be able to make. He made 2 catches, 15 yards, but one of them was on that final drive in overtime. and he played a lot on special teams. What do you make of him being able to come back? And Brennan and I were talking about this. Do you think he potentially hangs it up after this due to the injuries that he's had in his career?
I mean, it's entirely possible, but I never got that sense from him during the season that this was, maybe the final rodeo. I could see certainly maybe there's a possibility that he kind of goes a Mike Pennell route. Maybe he waits even longer. The last couple of years he kind of waited before he came back in. This past year in particular, I think he waited almost close to training camp before he signed and came back. I don't think he was out there for most of the OTAs, if any. Maybe you kind of even go later. I mean, if you're Jerick McKinnon, you do have kind of the option that if you want to, you can sit back and, maybe even sit out part of the season. Wait to see what playoff team needs some running back help. And maybe you go in there and you're just the hired gun late in the season. Because this guy's tough. And I don't know. I mean, hey, he was going to get his ring anyway. And I know how much obviously he wanted to play, but I got to feel like some of getting out there and playing was certainly to, show teams in the off season that he's got some juice left, that he's got something left in those legs, and don't give up on him yet. I've gotten the sense all along in the season that he still feels like he can play football.
And switching over to the defensive side, a guy that played a big role in this game, Leo Chanel, obviously just his second season in the league. What did you make of his game, and how much do you see of him being a big part of this team going forward?
Yeah, I mentioned this to somebody last night and this is I think about the ultimate compliment that I can give to a linebacker like Leo Chanel is that he really probably should be on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, he's like a perfect Pittsburgh Steeler linebacker that can do a little bit of everything, but is one of these, hard-nosed, Great Lakes kids. I mean, he's just got that in spades. And you just saw, how much growth he had this year. I mean, he worked so hard at everything. He knew coming to Kansas City that he had limitations. There were things that he hadn't done before, hadn't been asked to do. Playing on ball and going after the quarterback was one of those things. And, so he spends a lot of time in the defensive line meetings and working with Joe Cullen. It's not even his position coach, but goes in and does extra time trying to learn how to be a better pass rusher. Those are the amazing kind of things. And he does the same thing as a pass defender, trying to improve that skill too. So there's nobody that works harder than him. He's already the strongest guy on the team, certainly pound for pound. I think there's still a brighter future. I mean, I think he can only get better going forward.
Finishing things up with Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. It's our Chiefs insider here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline, as he does every Friday afternoon at this time. Speaking of guys going forward, and we've asked a couple of questions about Chanel just there from Spencer, and Dan was talking about guys who really raised their profile. Of this younger portion of the team, so not a Jones or not a Kelsey or obviously a Mahomes or any of the guys like that, how many guys who were contributors this year, Matt, do you see as guys who going into next year and beyond can take on even bigger roles? Now, I don't necessarily consider like a Rashee Rice because, well, he was wide receiver one the back half of the year anyway. I mean, he's already kind of entrenched in that role. But who are some guys who you could see stepping up and taking on bigger responsibilities going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think offensively, the one for sure that you had the most questions about whether he'll be able to is probably Wanya Morris. What did you see enough from him this year? Is he ready to take over that left tackle role? Can he be a starting offensive tackle in this league? Do you need to consider moving him to the right side, or is he still, growing? Is he still maturing? And maybe you need somebody to play in front of him for a bit. I think that's going to be one of the questions the Chiefs ask themselves this offseason, just certainly as they put this roster together. But that might be the guy that, you're certainly thinking, okay, I mean, if you think he could be a left tackle, that's going to be a critical role to play. So he might be the guy. But then you think about what you might be missing. If you don't have Chris Jones back, for sure, George Karlaftis, as big of a role he has been on this team, hey, next year, he might be the leader of that defensive line group. That might be the guy that you are in year 3 that you're expecting to be the face of the front, maybe even one of the faces of the franchise. Same thing with Trent McDuffie. He's the first year. He's already an all-pro like I talked about, but now you may be talking about him taking an even bigger leadership role. Probably the one guy that's going to have to take the biggest leap is Felix Anudike-Uzomah. He right now, I mean, as far as the guys who are under contract, I mean, I think you'd say he's got to be a starter next year. I mean, that's what he's being prepped for. That's what he was drafted to do. It was never to be a impact player in year one. I mean, they took him with the idea that they knew he was going to need some seasoning, but they also took him with the acknowledgement that they're going to need him to be probably a starter, if not a significant piece of the defense in 2024.
Last thing I've got for you, Matt. Do you feel like the Chiefs were more prepared for that game than the 49ers were?
Oh, without a doubt. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I mean, I think that's going to be one of the things that dogs Kyle Shanahan going forward is just his attention to detail and getting his guys prepared. But, I mean, when they don't know the overtime rules, man, oh, that's a bad look for a team. And there's even little things. I mean, you know, on that final drive, the final play that the 49ers ran in regulation, I mean, with the formation that Steve Spagnuolo was showing Brock Purdy, how you don't have your quarterback ready to say, hey, look, Brock, in a situation like that, we got 3 timeouts. If you see something on that defense that you've never seen before and you don't get what they're doing, call a timeout. I mean, how you're not prepared to do that. And, you know, instead you run a play, it gets knocked down, you stop the clock, and you just did the Chiefs a favor. I mean, it's little things like that that cost you games, and it costs you leads. And that's something that's going to dog Kyle Shanahan until he wins the big one, is that he can't hold on to a lead.
Matt Derrick is the best in the business when it comes to covering the Kansas City Chiefs. You can find all of his work at ChiefsDigest.com. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. He joins us every Friday at this time for our Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Matt, as always, my friend, we appreciate the time. Glad you made it back safely from Las Vegas, and we'll talk to you soon as we get ready. We know the grind doesn't stop for the Chiefs. It doesn't for us either as we get ready for the 24 offseason. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
That is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com, the absolute best of the best. Matt Derrick joins us every Friday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, we'll talk a little national NFL, plus a little college basketball preview for the weekend. It's coming up on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way here on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, 580WIBW.com, and on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube channel, as well today as the WIBW News Facebook page. And assuming our technology actually held up today, and indeed it did, you can go find our YouTube stream right at our website. If you don't want to go directly to youtube.com, deal with their search or any of that, just head right to our website, 580WIBW.com, right in the middle, the featured portion of the website, right in the center of it. You will see the video. You can just click on it and watch it right from the website homepage. You can go to YouTube from there. Very easy to find our video stream wherever you are trying to find our video stream. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis here with you today. We'll take you up until around 5:45 or so. That is when pregame coverage will begin tonight for our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader, the penultimate Friday night of the high school regular season.
Yeah, you're really getting down to the nitty gritty. Most teams have played 17 or 18 of their 20 games, and next week is the final week of the regular season. So we've got a good one tonight, we think. Manhattan is at Washburn Rural. Both of these games were tight, down to the wire affairs. In fact, the boys went overtime in the first meeting at Manhattan just 11 days ago. So looking forward to two more good games tonight. Join myself and the coach, Larry Latimer, for the broadcast of the Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader, starting again roughly 5:45.
We'll get to some college hoops in just a second. We've got What Is Wrong With You coming up as well. Plus, we're going to take a dive into some major questions, major storylines we'll be paying attention to going into the NFL offseason. Not necessarily Chiefs specific, but this was inspired by something I saw from The Ringer today about the biggest questions going into the offseason. They're 5 biggest. So we will come up with a few as well, either questions we've got or storylines we'll be following heading into the NFL offseason. You're welcome to text in your thoughts on anything we're talking about today. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Also, you can drop us a comment in the YouTube stream if you're watching us on YouTube or on Facebook. You can leave a comment, and we are all able to see it as it pops up. A couple things I wanted to get to before we dive into KU and K-State. Here's a question from Lori on the YouTube comments. Some clarification for the Chiefs offseason and what it looks like. Lori asked, what does it mean to franchise tag a player? So what it means is every team has the right to use what is called the franchise tag. There are a number of different tags that are available. This is the most common one. Essentially, it's used on a player who's on an expiring contract. So for the Chiefs this year, think Chris Jones or L'Jarius Sneed. Those are the two most obvious candidates for a franchise tag if you are the Chiefs. Guys who you would like to keep around or would like to keep under contract for at least one more year, but if you haven't been able to come to an agreement on a new contract, you can use the franchise tag. Now, the player has to sign that tag. That has happened before. That's been an issue with Orlando Brown, for example. He didn't want to sign that tag. We've had players who got the tag put on him. Le'Veon Bell, famously. He never signed it. He took an entire year off from playing in the NFL while his rights were still owned by the Pittsburgh Steelers because he did not want to play on the franchise tag. It guarantees you a fairly high salary for the year, but it's a one-year deal. And if you get injured, tough luck. Tough beans. You don't have that kind of job security. So players really don't like it generally. Teams like to use it because they say, hey, we can get 1 year locked in with a player who's really good and not have to worry about signing the contract. Now, one of the other specifics and the way it was originally intended to be used is teams would have the franchise tag option. That gives you until, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe it's mid-June. You have until mid-June to work on a long-term extension. So the reason it was invented in the first place was so that teams could say, hey, Chris Jones, we want to work on a new contract with you. We want to keep you long-term, or at least for the next couple of years. We haven't been able to work out an agreement yet, so here's what we are going to end up doing. We're going to put the franchise tag on you. We're going to give ourselves an extra 3 months to negotiate, and then during that time, if we can't figure out a new deal, you'll play for us for 1 year, or hopefully we come up with a long-term deal. And Lori adding she saw on NFL Network that they're talking about putting one on Chris Jones. Jones is a candidate to get the franchise tag. Sneed is the candidate to get one. Each team only gets one, though, so you have to pick who you want to apply that to. So that is the quick details, the nitty-gritty about what the franchise tag is, and it is going to play a big deal for the Chiefs this year. I'm almost certain they're going to end up using their tag. Some teams never do. The only time I can think of in the last decade, for example, that my favorite team, the Packers, have used it, they put it on Devontae Adams. That was just so they had enough time to get a trade done. They were not going to end up signing him. They traded him to the Las Vegas Raiders. That's why they used it. Otherwise, the Packers have not used it in my memory. The Chiefs used to not use it a lot, but they've used it more often recently because they've had a lot of talent. They've had a lot of good players, and you can only keep so many of them. That's how the salary cap league works.
How many guys get tagged a year? It's not usually much more than like 4 or 5 guys across the league get tagged.
I was going to say somewhere like 5 to 8 on any given year. And there often are some guys who either get the tag and get traded and then get a new contract, or they get the tag and immediately they end up getting, they get a long-term deal with their current team. So in terms of players who actually play on it, I think this year there might have only been 1 or 2, if I remember correctly. So it definitely fluctuates year to year. But in case you've been curious, because you're going to hear that phrase a lot coming up between now and the start of free agency in the, it's going to be about a month from today, actually. We're going to be close to it. I think the start of the new league year is either the 13th or the 14th. That's when the new league year starts. Another question here from Sam. Dan, I'll let
March 13th.
March
4
13th?
p.m.
Okay, 13th.
So,
I think that'll be 3 p.m. our time.
Yeah, 3 p.m. our time. So during our show.
Yes. No, that's a blast because you have the legal tampering period, the days leading up, when all the deals actually get done and announced. And then they all come fast and furious right at the top of the 3 o'clock hour on that Wednesday. Very, very fun times here on the show. Dan, I'll let you explain this one. We have another question in here from Sam. You were telling us earlier about the Chiefs and the Chris Jones contract option. It doesn't necessarily mean he's being kept long-term, but it's sort of a clerical thing they figured out.
Basically, yeah. It's a clerical deal. It ensures that the incentives that the Chiefs owe Jones, $4.25 million, are paid, and it retains their right to use the franchise tag on him. So if they had not done this, if they had not picked up this option, then they couldn't use the tag and he would hit free agency. So, but if he is not franchise tagged, he will hit free agency. It's just you retain the player's rights, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's essentially what it comes down to. So nothing huge in terms of the future for Chris Jones there, just something kind of procedural they had to get out of the way. By the by, and I appreciate Lori and Stan with the questions there. Whenever I tell you, let us know your thoughts on anything we're talking about, please ask to clarify things. No, yes. I know you have. I've listened to a lot of sports talk radio in my life, like a lot of it.
Yeah.
No one enjoys having people talk about something that goes right over your head and doesn't make sense and talks to you like you're a child or something worse.
Right.
Like, I am more than happy to explain. We want to be informative. We want to entertain and we want to inform.
And we understand too. We use a lot of statistics and
jargon,
things like that. And, use the shorthand for a lot of those statistics. You've heard us throughout this football season refer to DVOA, defensive value over average. I think it is. That's a proprietary advanced analytic metric invented by Football Outsiders, or EPA, expected points added.
That's a really new one.
Yeah, that's one that's really popular, and a lot of people use it. Particularly EPA per play is a big one that is involved in a lot of football analytics and football analysis nowadays. We use that shorthand all the time, and understand you might be new to the program. You might be not as well versed on this stuff as we are. Ask us. We're happy to clarify those things for you. This is not a closed, everybody's welcome inside the club. Like there's not a password necessary. Just we're always open to answering those questions if you have them. Get them in the YouTube chat, text them to us 785-272-9429, and one, if not all of us, will get you the answer you're looking for.
Yeah, so please send them in our way. We are happy to help. Before we get to KU and K-State as well, wanted to mention a couple of things, a couple legends of the game in college basketball who I wanted to send some best wishes to. First of all, a KU great, Scott Pollard. I don't know if you guys have seen what Scott Pollard's been going through recently, dealing with some health issues. He's been needing a heart transplant. He lives in Indianapolis, longtime NBA player, obviously a KU great. still rides and dies with KU, which I know a lot of Jayhawks fans really, really do appreciate. I believe if I was reading the tweet from his wife properly earlier today, he is scheduled to get his heart transplant. His name has come up on the list. There's one available. His wife, Dawn, tweeted today, Scott wanted me to let everyone know his pre-heart transplant hair is gone. It's go time, with pictures of him having his beard and his head shaved for it. Please keep the prayers coming for Scott, the surgeons, the donor, and his family who lost their loved one. This donor gave the most amazing gift of life, for which we are forever grateful. So it sounds like Scott Pollard is going to be able to go through this heart transplant, which, God bless him, and hoping for the best for him. I know a lot of KU fans have been following along with Scott's story, so really great to see that hopefully brighter days are ahead for him. Also, not one of our local teams, but I know you're a little more familiar with Mike Kennedy down in Wichita than maybe some folks up here.
44 years, the voice of the Wichita State Shockers, yes.
I believe I saw he's the 9th longest or 3rd longest tenured play-by-play guy in college sports. Something like that.
Yeah, he has certainly been at it a long time.
He is going to miss Wichita State's next couple of games in North Carolina. They're playing East Carolina and Charlotte. He is going through cancer treatment currently. We've had Mike on the show before to talk some Shocker basketball just a year or two ago. In fact, they were in the tournament, and we talked to Mike Kennedy on the show. Great guy, Wichita legend, college basketball in the state of Kansas legend. He has now missed 3 games after this weekend, 3 games in 44 years. 2 while he's getting cancer treatments, and then 1 when he had COVID back in 2021. What an unbelievable career. So wanted to send some best wishes to the Shocker Wichita State basketball community too, because I know he means a lot to that program.
And a heck of a broadcaster, certainly, but also really, really beloved in that community. I know we have some listeners in the Wichita area. You can catch the 580 signal down there. And yes, we want to all extend our best wishes to Mike Kennedy. Better man than a broadcaster, and he's a heck of a broadcaster. And we hope he gets well. He's behind the mic again soon.
As for our local teams here, both KU and K-State are in action this weekend. I will start with KU here. KU's got 3 remaining road games in Big 12 play. And then it's all neutral after that. All right. We can live with neutral site. Don't love the road games. We can live with neutral site games. KU's final 3 road games are Oklahoma tomorrow, Baylor, and Houston. I think KU is dang good. You know that. I don't love a team that's already bad on the road and their chances against Baylor and Houston in Waco and Houston, respectively. I just don't.
Do you know which Big 12 teams have worse road records than Kansas?
Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas State?
Nope, that's the list. West Virginia and Oklahoma State are 0-6 in league play. KU, K-State, and UCF are 1-5 on the road. There is one team in the conference that has a winning record away from home. Can you guess?
Houston seems too easy.
It is not Houston. Houston and Iowa State are both 500 on the road. That's why they're tied for the conference lead, not coincidentally.
No, I don't know. Texas.
It is Texas.
I was going to say it's probably someone dumb like them.
3-2 away from the mood. 2-4 though at home.
Wow. I'll always make fun of the Moody Center in Texas basketball. I have no shame in doing that.
Only 3 teams have losing records on their home floors. Oklahoma State, naturally, because they're 2-9 in the league.
They stink.
Texas, who we just mentioned, and Cincinnati is 2-4 at the Cintas Center. No, that's not where they play. That's where Xavier plays. I think Fifth Third Arena. Yeah, that's what
Fifth Third Arena. This is the last best chance to get a signature road win for KU. I'm not worried about the Big 12 race. I'm not. This team is better built to win in a tournament setting than it is in the regular season, which is good because they have struggled more than we are used to in the regular season. Still looking at probably a 2 seed for now in the NCAA tournament. Getting this win is a big deal because, again, I'm not expecting a win at Baylor or at Houston, and I do think KU will take care of business the rest of the way at home at Allen Fieldhouse. So with that in mind, this is a huge matchup for KU. You want to make sure you stay on that 2 line, and you're not out of it for the Big 12 championship either. You're still certainly in the running for that this year. I think the biggest player in this game is Hunter Dickinson. Quite literally, he is the biggest player in the game. But even with Kevin McCullough coming back, and we know how desperately KU needs to get him back on the floor, Hunter Dickinson has really struggled. I mean, he was terrible earlier in the week, and I think he would tell you that. I think Bill Self would tell you that. I think anyone who watched the game would tell you that. Do you remember what he did when KU played Oklahoma the first time, though?
McCullough? God, I was there. A pretty big game.
24 and 14,
Yeah.
11
and
of
5
9
blocks.
5 blocks, 11 of 19 shooting the ball.
Yeah.
He was awesome
monster
in that game.
Yeah.
If there was ever a time for him to get back in a rhythm, to find the Hunter Dickinson that we saw for the first 80% of this year up to this point, it is tomorrow. That is the opportunity. You've got another guy out there who can handle the ball in McCullough. It doesn't all fall on DeJuan Harris. You should be able to get him the ball in the post. He matches up well against this OU team. That is the key. He has got to be better. He's got to be at his best for KU to get as far as it wants to go this season. This feels like the time. A team you know he matches up with well, has played against well. This is the opportunity for him to get back in that groove.
Well, Coach Self talked about it in his media availability yesterday, and he said he thinks it'll be a little bit of weight off of Dickinson's shoulders to have McCullough back because of the ability that McCullough has to get the ball to him. And it's coming from, he won't play he won't play his normal minutes. McCullough probably won't tomorrow. But just getting a different rhythm, a different from what they did with Harris.
Yep.
So it's going to help getting McCullough back for Dickinson.
And frankly, it's going to help real quick. Sorry, Dan. It's going to help DeJuan Harris too, to have someone else who can handle the ball.
I think one of the biggest things that will help Dickinson tomorrow is the likelihood that John Hughley, who's the one big Oklahoma has, that's actually like big, like physically strong and can bang with Hunter a little bit and trying to wear him down. He got hurt in their most recent game, and I don't know if he's going to be available tomorrow. Both he and Rivaldo Suarez were injured in Oklahoma's most recent game, so their availability very much in question for Saturday. If Hughley can't go, Oklahoma's just got a bunch of stick-thin 6'10 guys to throw in the post, and that's not going to cut it against Hunter Dickinson. You can't really do anything with him if that's how you defend him. And I know this because Dickinson went off for that 24 and 14, and Hughley spent that entire game in foul trouble. He might have fouled out, but he hardly played. They couldn't keep him on the floor because Dickinson played so well that he got him into foul trouble. So I think it's a really good matchup for Dickinson. It's an even better one if Hughley can't go.
So that's the KU matchup, obviously huge. Then you've got Kansas State. I hate this matchup for K-State. I don't like the way the Cats match up with TCU at all. Now it helps that K-State gets this game at home. Get to take on TCU. The magic number has been 9-9 all year, right? In Big 12 play. We have said it. Fitz has said it. CJ Moore has said it. Jerome Tang has said it. Everybody is saying, hey, if you get to 9-9 in the league, you can get in. 8-10 is iffy because the metrics do not like K-State all that much this year. Just 73rd in the KenPom as of last check last night. And I could check right now, too. I'm sure they're still sitting there. Non-conference strength of schedule in the low 200s. Not great. Not a great metrics year for K-State. So stacking wins is going to be the most important. And that is why, by the way, that 4-1 start in Big 12 play, so big you don't even have words for it. You had to stack those early wins because you knew probably some regression and just hard games and the grind was going to catch up to K-State at some point. Can K-State just in general go 4-3 the rest of the way? And if you lose this game, can you go 4-2 the rest of the way? It's doable. It's going to be difficult. And I want to pick K-State because this feels like it could be a great inflection point for the rest of the season. But God, I hate this matchup considering the way TCU wants to play, what they're good at doing, and the fact that K-State has not valued the ball all year.
One potential advantage for Kansas State in this matchup is that they had the whole week off.
That's true.
I think that's really helpful for them to not have played, to come out of that BYU game and maybe start to figure some things out. They've got to get off to better starts. They've got to play better first halves. That has really hurt them on the road. A couple of winnable road games that they let get away because they didn't play well early in the game. BYU, the latest example, they did not get off to a good start in that game, and it really cost them. So having a whole week off, hopefully that gave them a chance to rest, recharge, and reset a little bit. TCU didn't have that luxury. Now they played Monday. They played Monday, beat West Virginia pretty handily in Fort Worth. So it's not as though this has been a strenuous week. It's not the short Wednesday turnaround or a Tuesday turnaround. So it's not maybe a massive advantage for K-State, but I think it is potentially helpful. It's an early tip-off. It's at home. This is a game for K-State to bring the juice and jump on TCU. And if they do, value the basketball, run some good offense, get out to an early lead, I think they've got a really good chance to pick up a home win.
You know, that's actually what happened last year when TCU came to Bramlage. I was at that game. I went with my wife just as fans to watch it, and K-State got out to a great start in that game. TCU fought back. That was a good TCU team a year ago, but that was very much how the script went for that game. It was a Tuesday night, I think, late tip-off.
Yeah, Mike Miles didn't play in that game, and obviously he was pretty significant for that team.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I remember exactly.
Hey, dubs are dubs.
Yeah, it unfolded exactly the way you remember it, yeah.
Coming up on the other side of this break, we've got today's What Is Wrong With You, and we'll talk some NFL offseason storylines later this hour. It's all coming up on 580 Sports Talk. It's time to find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply here on 580 Sports Talk. Our winner for the week, it is the gentleman in Florida who had already had 39 previous theft arrests, who decided to steal a couple of lawn statues of cranes and gift them to his ex-girlfriend for Valentine's Day. The police showed up and said, hey, those were stolen. And you won't believe this, but the two are not back together after that little incident. Today's What Is Wrong With You stories are brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications. Save you time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to your metal with Top City Metal Supply, located right here in the capital city on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Dan, you are up first today.
We meet 38-year-old Calvin Batista of Richmond Hill, New York, and no, he was not happy to see you. Those were, in fact, snakes in his pants. He hid them in his pants to smuggle them across the United States-Canada border. Batista admitted he had 3 Burmese pythons in his pants when he rode a bus across the border all the way back in 2018.
All right, man, no need to brag.
3 Burmese pythons. What you gonna do, brother? with
these 24-inch Burmese pythons, brother.
Customs and Border Protection's officers discovered the snakes concealed in bags attached to his pants near his inner thigh during a search. That is way too close for comfort as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how poisonous Burmese pythons are, but I don't care.
All I know is they got those sharp fangs, and there's a whole lot of something down there that I don't want being touched by any fangs.
Authorities say Batista failed to obtain the required permits. Oh, you don't say. And documentation to import the snakes into the U.S. Burmese pythons are not native to North America and are considered an invasive species. Batista was sentenced to 1 year probation and fined $5,000. Why it took 6 years to hammer this out, I can only imagine.
I'm not into snakes. I'm not necessarily, I mean, I probably would be scared if I saw one in person, but I don't know. When I was a kid, I've shared this before. We had in our school district the science center, and it was at one of the elementary schools, but they had all sorts of stuff. They had their own little planetarium. The kids could go in. They had all sorts of different experiments you could do, and they had a big selection of animals, and they were like little box turtles you could play with. There was a chinchilla. There were a number of different things. There were rabbits, things you could play with and, learn about or do science, whatever. Then a snake. And the snake, all sorts of kids, like, I want to touch the snake. I want to play with the snake. No, keep the snake all the way away from me. I want no desire to hang out with a snake, poisonous or not, whether it's going to bite me or not. No, thank you. Do not want to be around the snake.
Texture from the 785 informs us that Burmese pythons are constrictors and are not poisonous. So I guess that's good to know as far as whatever danger this gentleman's inner thigh region was in when he decided to tape these snakes to his person in bags and smuggle them across the border. All I know is this: I come down on the same side as my guy Gene Belcher from Bob's Burgers when it comes to snakes. They really creep me out. Where are their arms and legs? It's not okay.
That's funny. My story for today is going to take us to Lake County, Illinois, where we meet a 41-year-old man who had to go to a DUI impact panel. He had been arrested for a DUI. A sergeant had attempted to wake the man up to inform him, like, hey, you've got to be up and awake for this. Here's the problem. Why was he not awake? He was drunk. Showed up to the DUI panel, the driving under the influence impact panel, while drunk. He then became increasingly aggressive toward the sergeant. The sergeant tried to take him into custody. The man resisted arrest, leaving the sergeant with abrasions and bruises, according to officials. He was eventually taken into custody and charged with aggravated battery of a peace officer and aggravated battery in a public place. Both are felonies. So again, let's recap here. This guy got a DUI. He had to show up to a mandatory class, and he showed up to it drunk and then got in trouble for attacking an officer.
That's tough.
I would not, it's somewhere where they need to tell me that being drunk was bad. I would not show up to that place being drunk, personally. This is, again, literally an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where Charlie has to go to AA because of he admitted to being drunk when they burned down a building, and then he shows up drunk. Once again, life imitating art.
That's tough.
All right, who we got today?
I got to go with snakes. Snake pants.
Yeah, snake guy.
Snake pants.
Smuggler.
I am tired of these monkey flying snakes on this Monday to Friday bus.
Terrible. Terrible.
My favorite story about that movie, Snakes on a Plane, is that they were making it like dead straight.
Yeah.
Like it was not meant at all to be like funny, or it was just meant to be like kind of a send up of old B horror movies, Terror in the Skies and what have you. And then it started getting memed to death.
Mm-hmm.
And people making jokes about Samuel L. Jackson using a certain 12-letter compound profanity that I will not repeat, but it starts with an M and ends with an R. And saying that in the context of having snakes on a plane. So the people directing the movie were like, wait a minute, we got to get Samuel back in here. He has to say that. He has to say that thing. And so it's very obvious when you watch the movie back that scene was clearly reshot, and he was the only person like around when they shot him saying, enough is enough.
The TV edit's hilarious.
Yes, the
because
TV
it's
edit
just
is
dubbed in.
Yes, and the TV edit is I'm tired of these monkey fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane.
It's just dubbed in though. It's not even like reshot.
It is between that and this is what happens, Larry, when you find a stranger in the Alps from The Big Lebowski as the greatest bowdlerizing of profanity for a cable edit in the history of movies.
All right, so Snake Pants wins today. Snake Pants gets the win. Does that beat our guy who stole 2 crane statues and gave them to his ex-girlfriend to try to win her back?
No,
on Valentine's Day?
I love the simp thief. I think that's I think this is a story with some potential staying power, particularly on Valentine's week, the week of Valentine's.
Yeah, very, very fitting. I asked you yesterday, have you ever done something to try to win back an ex? And you said no, and even if yes, then no. Listen, I'm not too proud to admit. Yes, I absolutely have. Absolutely. I was a much more desperate man at one point in my life. And I never did this. I never stole anything. I never committed a crime to do it, which I guess, if I can feel morally superior to one person for one thing, I guess I found that one thing. But the Simp Thief is our winner for the week in What Is Wrong With You. He will advance on to our February Fail 4 coming up at the end of the month. What is Wrong With You, as always, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Dan is off to the House of Blues, the Washburn Rural Activity Center, for our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader coming up in just a little bit. Spencer and I are with you until the end of the show, and we'll talk NFL offseason storylines and big questions coming up on the other side of this break right here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan and Spencer here with you the rest of the way on 580 Sports Talk today. Dan's on his way to the House of Blues for our Lewis Toyota High School basketball game of the week doubleheader. Centennial League action, Manhattan versus Washburn Rural. Pregame will begin in the neighborhood of 5:45. Tip-off scheduled for game 1 at 6 o'clock. You'll be able to listen to all the action with the coach and with Dan right here on 580 WIBW, FM News 104.9, as well as online at 580WIBW.com. A programming note for you, important because we don't want you to feel lost or abandoned coming up on Monday.
Yeah.
We will not have a show on Monday. It is President's Day. We get President's Day off, and we're going to take President's Day off. So no show on Monday. We will be back with you coming up on Tuesday next week. Obviously, we will have plenty to get to. We'll talk to Matt Verderam. We'll talk to Michael Swain. We'll get to our Chiefs offseason wish list that I've been telling you. We'll get to what the Chiefs need to do this offseason, what we want the Chiefs to do this offseason. All that is coming up Tuesday on 580 Sports Talk. We're taking the 3-day weekend. I hope you do as well. And if not, take some extra time for yourself. Do something nice for yourself this weekend, one way or the other. We will do something nice for ourselves by not coming to work. That's the nice thing we're doing for ourselves.
You will.
Well, yes. Spencer's got some responsibilities to do.
Not too much.
I'm moving next week, so I'm just gonna be packing.
I was gonna ask, like that's a quick turnaround for you guys to move.
Yeah, it all came together very quickly. For what it's worth, in case you didn't hear me talking about moving the other day on the show, I'm not like leaving. I'm actually, in fact, moving closer to where I work. So I'm not going anywhere. I will be here for the long haul. Don't worry about that. But no, my wife and I are moving into town, and yeah, it's a pretty quick turnaround. So we gotta get this taken care of. So my day off is actually just packing boxes.
I feel that.
Making sure that
I recently did that.
Yes, yeah, you know exactly what that's like.
But I didn't get to bring my whole life with me, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
I'm trying to figure out what's going to fit where. When the girlfriend moves in, what I can have her snag from my parents' house.
Yeah, that's a good point. So how full is your place right now? Obviously, you now have a futon. That is nice.
Yes.
You have a bed.
I've had a bed, yes.
That's good.
But if anybody remembers, that was a whole adventure.
That was also a whole thing, yes. So like how full, like are your walls all filled up? Do you have closet space left? Like how jam-packed are you in your place now?
See, I'm thinking about picking up a TV stand tomorrow.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Freaking Ritz-Carlton over here now.
Well, I have my TV currently on one of those cube things, 6 cube things that you buy.
Yeah.
And I told you, I don't know if I said it on the air or off the air, but when I've wanted to watch I only have one TV right now.
Gotta turn it.
No, I have to slide the things from one room to another if I wanted to watch it in a different part of my apartment.
That's really funny.
So currently I have not a lot of stuff, although I'm going to move some things around from where I left it this afternoon after putting my futon together. Still need a dining table at all, whatever. That might be coming here soon. Need a dresser. My room is the least full of all of them.
Okay, that's good.
It's the least full because I have a table that will eventually become a side table in the living room. And then I have my bed, and that's really it. I have a box of stuff in there that I need to figure out where to put.
Yeah.
But also with the help of Dan and his electric screw gun thing, I was able to put up the things that hold my curtain rods in.
There you go.
So I now have curtain rods, and I won't be woken up earlier because of the way that the light comes into my room. So I will be a little less grumpy coming in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You've been a real peach in the morning. No, man. I mean, longtime listeners of the show know what I lived like before I met my now wife. And like the first month plus, like month and a half that I lived in where I live right now for the next week or so, I had I had one of those like butterfly chairs, and then I had an office chair, like a swiveling office chair.
Yeah.
That's all I had to sit on. I would eat dinner just standing in my kitchen. Like I would cook a steak or like a single pork chop or something and just like eat it off. I had this griddle you could put on the stove, and I would just stand in my kitchen and eat it.
See,
I actually did that well after I had a table too, but
luckily in my apartment, they have a breakfast buffet thing is what they call it, but it's just an island attached.
Okay.
to literally the kitchen. So
Yeah.
it's just like I just have an ottoman, which I actually found for like $15 at Aldi finds.
There you go.
Gotta love that thing. And I use that and I put it on the other side outside of the kitchen because it's got like I don't know what the term is, but you can see into the kitchen. It's like an island essentially.
Mhm.
And that's where I eat, which I don't mind eating there. But
Sure.
obviously, like when I tell my girlfriend, yeah, I'm eating here, she goes, you need to get a dining table.
It's funny how so many people have so many shared experiences. I think when my wife found out when we were dating or even into being engaged and into being married, found out like the ways I lived and existed for a long time, it was like, how in the world did you live like this? Like,
Yeah.
How and why? You could, like when I didn't have Tupperware or a toaster or anything like that.
It's okay. I don't have a microwave. That's probably
true.
next on the list.
Yeah, that was a must have because
I need to get one. I've been thinking about getting one, but I did. I bought, I was at Sam's Club last week and I bought it's like pre-made buffalo chicken dip.
Yeah.
And I was like not thinking. And I was like, oh, I'll just have this while I'm watching the Super Bowl. Not realizing that if I wanted to warm it up, I'd have to put it on the stove, which would be really weird. So it's still sitting there unopened. I think I might just bring it to work and have it every day at work.
I can't tell you where I'm seeing this, but it is a mart that has multiple walls. You can get it in a microwave for like $50.
Yeah, that's the plan. But then I don't know. What if I end up moving to a place that has one built in?
Put it on Craigslist.
That's true.
Or Facebook Market. Man, you can sell anything on Facebook Marketplace.
Shout out to the 785 texting into the show. Spencer, you can go to the Rehome store. They got some that's what I've been going to.
There you go.
I got a little small trash can for the bathroom in there. I got a side table there. I'm looking at the TV stand that it potentially to be from there.
Tune in on Tuesday next week when we find out which like basic life necessities Spencer has added to his 1-bedroom apartment.
But yeah, I'm holding out for most of the stuff till the girlfriend comes because there's no point in buying more stuff.
No, that's fair. I mean, if it's going to come, and also, and this is not a shot at anyone in particular, but like you move in with someone, they have stuff, they have a certain standard they want to live to, and maybe it ends up you buy something and no, this is not acceptable. Get rid of it. We're putting something else in. That happens sometimes. I've lived through that.
Yeah, I have a few things back home that they're like must-haves, like that were kept.
Sure.
They're like family not heirlooms necessarily, but like family pieces of furniture.
Things that are meaningful, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, I couldn't bring them obviously in my car because, don't have that much space.
Right.
So that's definitely going to be reserved. I have an area reserved on her truck, her moving truck.
Perfect.
That she doesn't know about yet. Maybe she will.
I was going to say, if she's listening, she might have just found out right now.
Maybe I'll get a text in a minute, but yeah, we're going to hold out on a lot of stuff till like June, July.
Well, it's good to know. I'm excited to see where this goes. I'm very emotionally invested in this at this point.
I'm glad that we both have lived this way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's, they've come up over time and they pop up once in a while. There are a lot of things I shared about the way I lived in quite a long time in early adulthood that frankly should be more embarrassing than it probably is. But yes, it's definitely a shared living experience there. I wanted to touch on this before we get to the top of the hour. We've got just a few minutes here before we have to get to the news break. I saw this from The Ringer this week. It's their 5 biggest questions for the NFL offseason. And I thought this was a good starting point for just a couple of, outside the Chiefs, because we got a whole offseason to talk about the reigning Super Bowl champions, what they are going to do, what they should do, Chris Jones, L'Jarius Sneed, the draft, etc. But what are the big storylines, the big questions from around the NFL, whether they're a specific team or sort of a league-wide narrative that you're going to be following especially closely going into this offseason?
I've got 3 right off the top of my head.
Let's hear them.
And they're rules.
Oh.
What are we going to do about, why am I forgetting the name of it? The Eagles signature.
The tush push.
The tush push.
Are
we going to do anything? Is the tush push, anything going to be done about the tush push?
That's a good one.
What are the kickoff rules going to be? Because that's been getting some talk lately. Are they going to change the kickoff? Because obviously in the Super Bowl, the kickoff was literally nothing. It just was a touchback.
I know there was a proposal again to do, well, they don't use it in the new UFL, but the XFL kickoff, where everybody lines up on the other side of the field and no one can move till the returner catches the ball. It's awesome. I freaking loved it. The NFL shot it down, so it won't even go to a vote. They voted to not have it go to a further discussion and vote. But yeah, At some point, it's going to change, though.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
then my last one is a team going to come up with a solution? Because that's how the rules come about. A team makes it. Are somebody going to come up with a solution to the fumbling out of the back of your own ends or out of the end zone for a touchback for the other team situation? Those are three things that I wonder how they're going to get addressed this offseason.
I like that rule. I genuinely like that rule and think it is a good thing, but there was so much pushback to it this year in particular, and especially in the postseason when things are obviously magnified, that it sort of feels like someone is going to try to get that out of the game, if not this year, then soon. I like that rule, though, man. If you're not going to keep possession of the ball near the goal line, most important part of the field, you should be punished. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I also think that was swayed heavily by a Kansas versus Louisiana Tech football game in 2013, which KU would have lost at home if not for one of those fumbles out of the end zone. And then KU came back down the field and scored the game-winning field goal. Matthew Wyman, shout out to Wymania.
Yeah.
For me,
those were just three off the top of my head that I
for
think would get addressed this offseason in some shape or form.
No, yeah, I'm sure those will all be at least discussed. I would imagine of any of those, we will get permanent clarification or rules changes about the tush push. I think that's the one that will have the most priority, if I had to guess. For me, looking at the list from the Ringer here, their first one, and it's got a lot of different points, is will the quarterback market get reset? And if so, how many times? Think of the list of quarterbacks who are going to be up potentially for new contracts this year. Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott possibly, Jared Goff. That one is fascinating. Jordan Love in Green Bay. The Packers have said, "Hey, we're gonna get a long-term deal done." Like that's a top priority this year. Got to figure out what we're doing with him long-term. Hopefully that is indeed the case. Here's another one. What do you do with Tua Tagovailoa? All of these, I think, are really interesting cases. Even that Love one, which should be obvious he'll get a contract. What does that end up looking like? For a guy who has played one full season as a starter, had one other start before that was a disaster, had a couple okay appearances, a couple really bad ones, and then spent half the year as one of the three best quarterbacks in the league. How do you pay that guy? I mean, what do you do? That one's fascinating. I think Jared Goff is the most fascinating one. The fact that the Lions are keeping everyone together on the coaching staff, head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator.
They did lose front office staff, though.
That's true. They did. That's a good point. What do you do? Like, is Goff that guy? Do they think he's that guy? So I think that one is especially interesting going into this year. I think the wide receiver market is fascinating. We talked about that a little bit the other day because you've got Mike Evans, who is obviously a stud, T. Higgins, who's a really good player, Tyler Boyd. Shoot, the Bengals might have two of the three best wide receivers, or at least in the discussion for two of the three best wide receivers who are going to be available in free agency. What does that market look like? Especially in a year where, again, there's a pretty good wide receiver draft this year between Marvin Harrison, Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors. There's a bunch of dudes. The other Washington receivers, Polk and McMillan. A lot of dudes out there who are very talented receivers. Very curious how that is going to impact the free agency market this year. And that's going to have a direct impact as well on the Kansas City Chiefs. One other one, too, that is, it shouldn't be as interesting as the Bears are apparently making it out to be. What are they going to do with that number one pick? There's a couple different options you could take here. I have the obvious one, which I would do. You take Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
He's the best prospect in this class. Justin Fields sucks. He's by all accounts, great guy, works hard.
Falcons want him, apparently.
Who does?
Falcons.
Hey, if Falcons want him, take it. I mean, I'm not even rooting for the Bears. I hope the Bears keep him because he's not any good. I hope they end up keeping him. But if you were running a smart team, which historically they haven't, you get rid of him for whatever you can get. You draft Caleb Williams. You take anyone at number 9 and you move on. But let's say, and in my bold prediction at the start of the year, your Commanders say, you know
That's
what?
That was my thing was what are they going to do in the draft? Are they going to move up, stay where they are, or go back? And they have all that money. What are they going to do? How are they going to look heading into the season?
New owner, new coach. Caleb's a DC guy. Unlikely, but I do think it's possible. We've got about 45 minutes left of 580 Sports Talk. We'll get to our headlines, your text, your YouTube comments all coming up after our top of the hour news break. it is the final hour of 580 Sports Talk for this week, for this Friday afternoon, before the 3-day holiday weekend. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That is Spencer Dupuis. Thank you so much for spending some of your Friday afternoon hours with us. You are welcome to be a part of the show in this final 40 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, however long we're on the air until we get ready for high school hoops from the House of Blues at Washburn Rural High School, the Washburn Rural Activities Center. We'll send you over there for pregame coverage with Dan Lucero and the coach Larry Latimer beginning around 5:45. Centennial League action tonight for the Lewis Toyota High School basketball game of the week doubleheader. Manhattan visiting Washburn Rural today. That girls game especially should be a banger tonight. Huge game for the Washburn Rural boys as well. That's coming up in just a little bit. Coverage will begin likely within the hour. Before we get there, we have our 580 Sports Talk headlines, some final Super Bowl week thoughts from the two of us as well. We would love to get your takes on anything we're talking about on the show today. Text line number is 785-272-9429. And additionally, our YouTube stream can be found pretty easily. Just go to youtube.com and search 580 Sports Talk. That is the easiest way to find us. Stream is also live on our website right now, 580wibw.com. We're off early for high school hoops. We should do some AMA this hour. If you've got any questions you want to ask myself, you want to ask Spencer, you want to ask the both of us, send them in. Free-for-all. Friday free-for-all. Send them in. Whatever you want to ask, we will answer them. Keep it clean, because if it's not, we can't read them. So
talk about the nick of time. You got back. I thought I was going to have to start the hour off.
Oh, man. Don't worry. I have done this long enough that I know exactly. I see that clock hit 5:06, and I know just how long it'll take to run from another studio from my desk to get in here. I got those long legs, got the long strides. We're good.
I was preparing.
We went through years of Jake LeBon occasionally just like being completely AWOL about 35 seconds into the intro theme, which is 57 seconds, if I remember correctly. And just like leaning out the door and yelling, "Hey, we're on." So I'm trying to avoid that much.
If you were watching on YouTube or on Facebook, or on Twitter, X, there's also a stream there. You could have seen him running.
Oh, yeah, I booked it.
Yeah, and I think because there's glass right behind you, they saw you booking it to the door to get in the studio.
Well, and the angle on your camera on the stream, too, because you've got your outside window there as well. Yeah, you could have seen me hauling ass to get there. I had to sit down, take a breath, because there have been many times when I've done that, and then I haven't taken a breath yet. So welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Man, I tell you what, when I used to, back in the days when we would do the high school coaches show, we had one coach who wanted to, for football, whose best time was 8 a.m. And I have lived, I have to commute to work every day, at least for a little while longer.
Not for much longer.
Not for much longer. Not that kind of commute anyway. And I'm not a morning person. I am not remotely a morning person.
You're clearly a night person.
Very much so. And I'd get in and I would get to the station door like right at 8 o'clock. So I would run into the studio because I don't want to make anyone late or be late for anything. You know, how tacky is that? And I would turn on the phone and say, "Hey, coach, how's it going?" And I'd get into my first question, still panting. I thought, all right, this is a learning experience. Maybe wake up 5 minutes earlier. Leave 5 minutes earlier. Maybe we won't have to worry about sprinting into the studio to worry about doing that. So, yes, you may have gotten to see me if you're watching the YouTube stream or the Twitter stream, Facebook, wherever you might be watching, race into the studio today.
I will say, I think we're kind of both on the same brain with that. I was finishing up my sports last night.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm getting ready to log off the work computer at home, I get a little ding-ding email at 12:30 with the rundown for today. I'm like, oh, we're both on the same wavelength, doing work at 12:30.
It happens sometimes, man. I mean, I can't even tell you the number of times I would be up working and suddenly it was like, oh, well, it's 2 o'clock. Should probably start working now. That's another thing. Moving in with my now wife, when we moved in together, it was, hey, look, I know you stay up late, but I don't. So if you could not be loudly recording things in the living room while I'm trying to sleep, that would be great.
That'll definitely have to be something for me too, because my girlfriend's a teacher. So
a couple of things in here from the text line before we get to our headlines. We got a bunch of headlines we'll get through today. A couple of things here. One, regarding our games tonight. texture from the 785. He says, Washburn Rural is going to be a tough one for any team at Sub-State. Yeah, that is the truth. Girls side, if you're going to count out a Kevin Bordewick team, then you just don't really know what you're talking about at this point, because they are tough. They are gritty. They know exactly what they've got to do when you get to postseason basketball. They've been to the last 2 state championship games on the girls' side. The boys, in recent memory, I know it was when Kevin Muff was in charge of the boys program. They played for a state title not all that long ago against Blue Valley Northwest. They're tough as hell, too, on the boys' side of the ledger. Alex Hutchins, I'm really impressed by Coach Hutchins now in his second year with this rural program. So, yeah, no doubt they're going to be tough, but it's a big one tonight. Seeding-wise, especially for the girls tonight, really, really big game against Manhattan. One question from the 785 is, what happens when you got to go to the bathroom close to a break? Our building's not that big, but normally if I have to go, I will ask, how long is this break? And then I'll go. And if we have, 3 minutes of commercials, that's more than enough time. If it's like, hey, we got 2 minutes, well, I got to sprint. So
yeah, I've tried to sync myself up. I drink a lot of water during the day. If you ever watch the live stream, you will see me chugging water. I sync myself up to like those long end of the hour to the top of the hour breaks, luckily for me.
Yeah, learn to hold it. Like if you're calling a game, you can't just say, oh man, huge free throws coming up here. 4 minutes left in the game, 1 possession game. Unfortunately, I've got to step away. So here's some Nat sound for a little bit. No, you learn to hold it.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's something you can deal with. So yeah, that's what you do if you gotta go. You live with it. You hold it in as best you can. We had one texter from the 785 who was saying, talking about some of our high school coverage as of late. Wanted to give some love to the Linden Tigers down south. Just National Signing Day. What was that, last week now? Last Wednesday, was it? It wasn't this week.
Last week or the week before. I don't know. It's all winding together.
It all blurs together. Yeah, we had a ton. We talked mostly about the Topeka and Shawnee County athletes who had signed with various colleges for baseball, certainly football, other sports that had been committed. We obviously on our airwaves had the Linden State Championship game all the way back in November when they took down Wichita County in the 8-man-1 state championship. So nothing but love to our good friends down Highway 75 in Linden. I know a handful of their athletes are moving on. Caden Massey, among one. He is headed to Kansas State. Jalen Massey, he's going to Washburn. Very excited to see him playing locally. And I know Tanner Heckel as well, who, man, you want to talk about a winner and a gamer. He's going to Illinois. How freaking cool is that? And I know so many athletes around Northeast Kansas are going on and playing in various places, and it's cool. I just love to see. And this is a great year in Northeast Kansas specifically for the high school senior talent. And I know every class has different great levels of athletes, but to see the college athletes that are coming out of this year's class, both here in Shawnee County and Topeka and around all of Northeast Kansas, it's been really cool to see. Really cool to see a lot of those athletes grow and develop over time as well. So yeah, shout out to all of our local athletes who are moving out of the college ranks over the last couple of weeks, making their signing decisions.
While we're talking high school sports here, first headline. I don't know if you guys knew this before. It got approved yesterday. Shout out to Liam. I think is it Keating?
Yes. From the Topeka Capital Journal.
Yeah, he posted this morning on Thursday. The Unified School District 501 approved the hiring of Jason Philbeck to become the newest Topeka high school football coach. He comes to the capital city after 10 years at Augusta High School in Augusta, Kansas. He amassed a 45-51 record with the Orioles.
Yeah.
So they have a new high school football coach there at Topeka.
Yes, that's a big deal for T-High. I know after Carlos Kelly left the program, and a shout out to Carlos. He's a great dude. And I know he gave those kids his absolute everything while he was there as an assistant for a long time and then as the head coach the last several years as well. I'm fired up about Coach Philbeck. I was reading some of the quotes he gave our pal Rick Peterson for Pistol Story over at Top Sports and Liam's work over at the Cap Journal too. Really fired up about this. I think it's a really good fit for that Topeka High program. And let's not forget, it was not long ago that Topeka High was a legitimate state championship contender in Class 6A with some of the best talent that I've ever seen at the high school level. So I'm fired up about that for Topeka High. They found their new head football coach. Love his approach to things. Found a lot of success down in Augusta, a program that needed a little bit of a jolt, needed a little, shock to the system. Maybe that sounds more negative than I mean it to, but just really needed to have a little infusion of energy. And he did that for that program down in South Central Kansas, and really excited to see what he's able to do for Topeka High as he takes over that program. Let's dive in fully to the rest of our 580 Sports Talk headlines as well for today. Want to give you some notes about the aftermath of the shooting from Wednesday's Chiefs Championship Parade. Thankfully, we have seen that only one, as of this morning, patient was still being treated at Children's Mercy Hospital in KCK. A long road to recovery for a lot of those kids who were injured in the shooting and the aftermath of it on Wednesday. But thankfully, they do such an incredible job at Children's Mercy. There are so many great stories about what they've done for so many people in our area and the greater area as well. And again, as of this morning, I believe it was just one patient from Wednesday's incident and tragedy that was still being treated there. So that is absolutely a great thing to hear from them. The Chiefs today announced the start of their KC Strong Fund, including a $200,000 donation from the team itself, as well as from the Hunt Family Foundation and from the NFL.
Believe Patrick Mahomes came out and said that he and his foundation are donating to it as well.
Yes, the 15 of the Mahomes and Patrick and Brittany and their whole family involved here. And it's money that is going to be used for charitable causes in the wake of what happened. And that just absolutely awful, tragic scene in Kansas City earlier this week. And additionally, there's a GoFundMe out there for Lisa Lopez Galvan. She was a DJ for KKFI Radio in 90.1 FM, I believe, in Kansas City. She was a DJ for them. She was a Kansas City product, and she tragically lost her life in the shooting on Wednesday. And there's a GoFundMe out for her. And none other than Taylor Swift made a large donation. They were looking for maybe $75,000 to be raised for the family and for funeral expenses. Taylor Swift herself donated $100,000 to that. And I'm just going to say this. Dan and I were talking about this off the air a little bit earlier, and I would just like to put this out there. I've joked many times about how I'm very online. Like, I spend a lot of time on social media or diving into forums or message boards or whatever. And that's how people of my age, of our age, really, that's a lot of the ways we connect these days and read about things and learn things and figure things out. And there's a lot of good that comes with that. There's a lot of bad that comes with that. And one of the bad is a lot of cynicism. I think this is fake. Someone's doing this for engagement. They're doing it for clout, whatever. They're just trying to stay relevant if they're a celebrity, whatever it may end up being. I'm kind of zigging back in the other way now, though, where I've been cynical about these things for too long. And I saw a reaction to this. Oh, yeah, right. Like, that's the real Taylor Swift. One, how many people out there can just on a whim give $100,000 to a good cause?
Bingo.
And if you could, why would you feel the need to lie about who you are?
Plus, I'm pretty sure on GoFundMe, if you really wanted to, you make yourself anonymous.
Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't make sense. And also, you know what? Even if it's not, I'm done for now, at least, trying to be cynical and assume everything is a lie or fake. Like, if you're telling me this is Taylor Swift who did it and there's no proof otherwise that it's not, I'm just going to give a shout out to her. She seems like a very good person. And I know that she has endeared herself to a lot of Kansas City, if not all of Kansas City. And to do this for people in need, I think it's awesome. And I'm really, really glad she was able to do that today.
I do believe it's been confirmed too via her reps.
Good.
It was in fact her.
Good for her. And if you're doubting that, man, go for a walk, get some fresh air, touch some grass. Come on. So that is the latest updates on some of the charitable work being done to take care as best as possible of who was affected by the tragedy on Wednesday at the Chiefs Parade.
Yeah. And they have now charged 2 juveniles.
Yes. And it's just sad. It's so depressing and sad, and it never should have happened. I think that's certainly what we can all take away from that. First headline for you. Well, second headline. You had it first. What's your second headline?
Tiger Woods withdraws from the Genesis. Unfortunately, I think he's done unless he decides he wants to do which he said he doesn't want to do. He says he won't golf anymore when he can't be on a car, when he can't walk. And did you see what happened on the 18th yesterday?
I did not. I saw he was playing decently.
So he completely just flubbed on the 18th and he was holding his leg. So he said he doesn't, when it comes time to where he can't walk the course, he doesn't want to play anymore. Will he reverse course and start on a cart? Who knows? If not, I think he might want to think about hanging it up.
I mean, it's just getting so close to the point where I don't know how you don't say enough is enough. And like, it ain't my life. I'm not here to tell him to not participate anymore. I'm not here to tell him to stop trying to make money, to be out there doing what he loves, what he's committed his life to. That's not me. But what I can tell you is I don't know that I just find it hard to believe he's ever going to be competitive again.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're withdrawn on the second day of an event. And I know he won the Masters a few years ago and no one thought he could ever do that. I get that. But it's been a long time and it's been multiple severe injuries since then. I just don't know how it's going to happen. And I'm not a golf guy at all. I'm not a Tiger guy by any means, but he's one of the greatest athletes and one of the greatest icons in American sports history. And I know people get charged up when they see him out there, but at this point, it's one of those things where I just can't help but say, don't you think it's over? Like, doesn't it feel like it's over at this point? And I don't know how it's not. Maybe he keeps giving it a try, but I don't know. Are you a big golf guy? Are you a big Tiger guy?
I mean, not a huge one. I mean, I will watch Sundays of golf, but I won't. And then I guess the Masters, I will stop working and watch that. I shouldn't say that. I'm in a job where I can do that though, because it's work. I'll pay attention to all the Masters and, some of the tournaments, but most tournaments I'm just kind of watching on Sundays.
Yeah, it bores me. Do you play?
I play golf a little bit, as I think we talked about this like the first or second show. I'm like a good 1,000 scratch golfer.
It ain't for me. It's too slow. I don't enjoy watching it. It's just not for me. But I respect what Tiger Woods has been in his career.
Yes.
I just not my game. But hey, best of luck in it. I hope he's okay. That's what I hope for more than anything. Next up for me for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. How about this? Jimmy Garoppolo, old Jimmy GQ, who look, it's been a great career for Jimmy, who was from the Chicago suburbs. Shout out to Rolling Meadows. Went to Eastern Illinois, ends up one of the greatest FCS quarterbacks ever, or at least of his era. Second round pick, got a ton of money from San Francisco and a lot of money from Vegas as well. Played in a Super Bowl, won a lot of games, very handsome, all sorts of good in Jimmy Garoppolo's career. Well, then today, how about this? It was broken originally by Adam Schefter and the rest of the NFL media conglomerate followed. Raiders quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo is being suspended 2 games for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing substances policy, according to ESPN. The policy violation is related to him using a prescribed medication without having a valid therapeutic use exemption. So that's why he ended up getting a 2-game suspension as opposed to a 4-game suspension, if I'm not mistaken. It's an actual prescription medication, but you have to actually tell the NFL, hey, I'm being prescribed this. That can be lots of things. It can be Viagra. It can be fertility medication. It can be Adderall.
Yeah, I was about to say it can be ADHD medicine.
I mean, it can be any number of things, but you have to tell the NFL because they keep testing for that stuff. And it's entirely possible it had nothing to do with any of that, and he had a bogus prescription, and he's just been beating the system all these years, and it only now popped. I don't think the NFL's testing has a lot of teeth to it, to be honest with you. So I don't know if this is it forever for Jimmy Garoppolo, but I think after how badly he played this year for Las Vegas, the way his time in San Francisco ended, now facing a 2-game suspension if anyone was going to end up signing him, this might be it for Jimmy GQ. I'm not sure if I see it happening again.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. What is he anymore? I mean, he basically Aiden O'Connell's starting quarterback for the Raiders.
Yeah, and the other thing about this, too, is he was doing $11+ million bonus this year. That is likely going to be voided now. That's the assumption, is that is going to be voided. That's going to save a lot of money for the Raiders.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that helps the Raiders, the cause to do that, is him getting suspended for violating a policy.
Honestly, someone is probably going to tell you, and I'm not the first one to make this joke or make this comment, someone will probably happily tell you this is the best thing he's ever done for the Las Vegas Raiders. Another text here from the 75. That's pretty much irrelevant. He's done. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see Jimmy G being a USFL guy or a UFL guy, excuse me. Like, I don't see him being the kind of guy who's going to go play spring football to try to get one more job. Like AJ McCarron.
I was about to say, AJ McCarron is going to go back and play for the St. Louis Battlehawks, right?
Cause the law, baby.
He said the only reason he's doing it is he asked for his release, didn't he?
Yeah. He was. I mean, shoot, if he's going to go back, be a UFL MVP candidate, then get signed to a practice squad or an active roster again in the fall, you're going to make a lot of money and extend your career a lot doing that. And that's what AJ did this year. I'm sure he'll do it again next year. Shout out to my beloved Battlehawks. I don't think that's Jimmy G, though.
No.
Just not the hunch I get that he's that kind of guy. So I think it is very possible that he's cooked for the rest of his career. Heck of a career, though. And you can make fun of his shortcomings as a quarterback however much you want, but in the end, he won a lot of games, made a lot of money. And for a lot of guys, that's all that matters in the end. So, yeah, Jimmy G, 2-game suspension or maybe just the end of the line.
Probably the end of the line.
Anything else you've got today?
Caitlin Clark breaks the NCAA women's basketball all-time scoring record with the total of 3,528 points. She unseated former Washington star Kelsey Plum. And greatest women's college basketball player of all time now, and could be one of the greatest college basketball players of all time in general.
So we do need to specify, and a lot more people have brought this to the forefront recently, including some journalists around our area. It is the NCAA scoring record that Caitlin Clark broke. The all-time collegiate women's basketball record is still 80 points away. That belongs to KU great Lynette Woodard, who scored all of her points before the NCAA sanctioned women's basketball, back when it was the AIAW, when she played as the all-time college record. She also didn't have a 3-point line.
That's what I was about. There was something in Marshall a few years ago, and a player had like a record for threes in a career, but she played the first 2 seasons of her career with no 3-point play or no 3-point line to be able to score to be able to hit a 3-pointer.
That's like Pistol Pete's scoring record. Like, it's preposterous how much it's hard for me to quantify. Like, I know Pistol Pete Maravich is the all-time leader in points in men's NCAA basketball. It's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact there was no 3-point shot and how efficient he was and what he was able to do. It's absolutely unbelievable, to be completely honest with you. I mean, it's awesome for Caitlin Clark. And I say that she's going to score 80 more points before the season is over. So she will end up having that record. And she's incredible, man. She really, really is incredible. And she is a show. We've talked about it on this program before, how there aren't stars in men's college basketball right now the way there are stars in women's college basketball. And even the last time we had a mega star in the college game, it was Zion Williamson. But Zion wasn't a star because of how great of a college player he was. He was a one and done. He was a star because he went viral and got popular before he even made it to Duke. He had gone popular on Instagram and wherever else long before he ended up at Duke and playing for Coach K. So I think it's awesome. I think it's great for women's basketball. It's cool for college basketball in general. I don't know if she's going to end up playing a 5th year. If she does, the scoring record will never be touched. It will never, ever fall. I assume she is going to go to the WNBA. That would be my hunch at this point.
Yeah.
There are very few shows in sports like her, though. It reminds me of the peak of Steph Curry, where people would show up before games just to watch him warm up. And I'm sure people still do.
The ticket prices for the game last night, I think, were like on a record, or for a record for most for a women's basketball game.
I did think it was funny. I heard one person, I think it might have been Sports Center, talking about the game, saying, oh, she got close last time out, but wanted to make sure she set the record in front of the home crowd. Dog, I'm pretty sure if she could have scored 8 points in the 4th quarter when they got upset by Nebraska earlier in the week or last weekend, she absolutely would have. I do not think she tanked herself and that game. That was a bad loss for Iowa. They should have beaten Nebraska on the road. Did not. I don't think this was intentionally trying to set the record at home at Iowa, but she did it in the most her way possible.
Oh, yeah.
Shooting the near logo 3. She's a blast. She's a lot of fun. And it's great to see how popular she has been. And again, it's great for women's basketball. And so many people tune in to watch her. I mean, the ratings last year for the NCAA tournament on the women's side were great. I know they've been good so far this year, just people wanting to tune in and watch her. And she's she's a spectacle. So congrats to her for the NCAA record, and soon we'll have the all-time collegiate record.
Oh, yeah. There's
Soon.
enough time left in the season.
I'm sure she will get 80 more points. One more quick headline for me today. A former Royal is on the move. Second baseman Whit Merrifield. He is headed to the Philadelphia Phillies. 1 year, $8 million with a club option for 2025. I'm sure that is going to end up being something like a $2 million or $1.5 million buyout or something like that. Obviously, Whit's time with the Royals ended in unceremonious fashion. Let's put it that way, with the COVID thing and the not being able to play in Toronto and getting traded to Toronto, and the comments he made about playing in the postseason or not just really rubbed a lot of Royals fans the wrong way. But he was the best player for a couple of years of those Royals teams, him and Salvi. So I view Whit still positively, but I can understand if some Royals fans are kind of over the Whit Merrifield thing. But he is on the move. He's headed to Philly. 1 year, $8 million. That does it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. We had a question about this on the YouTube. We'll get to some of these in a little bit. We're doing Ask Me Anything the rest of the way. If you've got a question for me, for Spencer, for both of us, for anyone about anything, let us know. Send it in. Text line 785-272-9429. Hit us up on YouTube. Drop some of those in for us as well. 580 Sports Talk is where you can find us on YouTube. We'll answer whatever comes in. We'll get to them over the rest of the show until we get ready for high school hoops in just a little bit. More 580 Sports Talk coming up right after this. Brendan and Spencer wrapping up 580 Sports Talk with you on this Feel Good Friday afternoon. Dan Lucero and the coach Larry Latimer getting ready for high school hoops coming up on our airwaves in just a little bit. JV still going on at the House of Blues. Washburn Rural versus Manhattan tonight. We will have the girls-boys doubleheader. Girls game scheduled for a 6 o'clock tip, maybe just slightly after that today. JV about halfway through the fourth quarter, so we'll get you out there as soon as we can. The boys game will follow right after the girls game is done. And again, all the action right here on the Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader on 580 WIBW. A couple of questions in here. One, a quick Ask Me Anything. Vance wants to know, Spencer, where do you stand on the oatmeal raisin cookie?
Not a fan at all.
I can live with it. I'd prefer oatmeal chocolate, but I can live with it. It's fine.
I don't know. I'm not a raisin guy.
No, I'm not
It's
either.
a texture thing,
I get that.
which is weird.
No,
because-
they're weird. I wouldn't eat
Yeah.
raisins normally. They're fine. Like if I need something, I'll eat it. It would never be my first choice for sure. Specifically, the question was, is the oatmeal raisin cookie inspired by Satan? I can live with them. I don't love them, but I can live with them. Any questions you've got, they can be about whatever. Free for all Friday. Send them in. Text line 785-272-9429 or in the YouTube comment section as well. This one from the 785. Where's Washburn going to be tomorrow? Well, I can tell you Washburn, and by proxy, yours truly, will be down in Edmond, Oklahoma. MIAA action for, after a long week off, one Washburn really needed to get rested on both the men's and women's side. Will be in Edmond to take on the Broncos of Central Oklahoma. The women are scheduled for a 1:30 tip-off, the men at 3:30 or 25 minutes after the women's game ends. And you can catch all that action on our sister station, Country 1069, tomorrow afternoon.
What time is Brennan leaving tomorrow?
Leaving home. So I'm going to leave here probably in the neighborhood of about 8:15.
Okay.
It's a straight shot. to get- Edmond is maybe 15 minutes from Oklahoma City
Okay.
and north. So all you do, you get on the turnpike, take 335 to 35 all the way there.
Okay.
All the way right there. The drive itself is actually really easy.
It says 4 hours is what I'm looking at. 3 hours, 59.
Yeah, it's just long.
Yeah.
That's the pain of it, is it's just long. The bright side of it, though, is there's the Whataburger, which we eat at anytime that myself or Dan drives down that way for anything or back, we go to the Whataburger in Edmond and have eaten there many, many times. And there's a very good chance that I might actually leave an extra 5 or 10 minutes early just to make sure I can get that for lunch before I get to Hamilton Fieldhouse tomorrow. There's also a Brahms on the way. And you know how much I love Brahms.
So one, you're going to get going there, and the other, you're going to get going home, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what you're hearing. No, that is correct. That is correct. If it was a multi-day trip, I probably would do one on each day, but it's not, so I got to hit both. And we don't have them here, so I've got to hit both.
Apparently, there's a bronze coming.
Yes, that is the word on the street, is that I think both Topeka and Lawrence are getting a Brahms in the near future, or sometime
Somebody
in the
will tell
near-ish
us and they'll
future.
fill us in the Facebook comments.
Yeah, I believe that is indeed the case. A couple other quick ones here. Let's fire through. So yes, Country 1069 tomorrow, 1:30 start time. I'm leaving home tomorrow around 7:30 because I have to get here and then have to hit the road. It is what it is.
Doesn't sound fun.
It is. That's the biz sometimes.
Yeah.
The fun parts are so fun, it makes up for the not so fun
It's okay.
parts. Like that.
When I was covering Shepherd, we would leave at like 4 a.m. sometimes, because the PSAC had 12 p.m. starts across the board.
Yuck.
Some were like 1 o'clock.
Gross.
But yeah, most of them were 12 o'clock, and it was 5-6 hours, and we had to get there an hour and a half early.
The PSAC, by the way, that is an athletic conference,
The
not
Pennsylvania
something
State
else.
Athletic Conference.
Get your minds out of the gutter. Another question to follow up here. What do I get at Whataburger? I go with the number 2 generally, the double. It's so good. I always forget how big they are, which is really pleasurable when you finally are able to eat it. That's my go-to. Nothing fancy. I do like the barbecue chicken strip sandwich, and then what's the other one? The honey butter chicken biscuit is always great as well. But yeah, the number 2 is my usual go-to for a midday meal.
We got a comment from Mark here on the stream. How many hats do each of us have? I probably have a dozen, but I didn't bring, not all of, I have a dozen with me in Topeka.
Okay.
There are more hats in Leesburg, Virginia.
I last counted before Christmas. I got multiple for Christmas this year. I believe I'm just over 40.
True.
And that's after I gave away a couple as well that didn't fit me anymore.
Yeah, I was offered some DC sports hats from a family friend right before I left, and I was like, I would like them, yes, but I don't think my parents would like them sitting back here, and my car is pretty full.
Hard to bring those along. Yeah, it's 40. I like to mix them up. Today I'm going with the it's hard to show the camera with the new camera setup. Got the KC Scouts hat on today.
Yeah.
Shout out to the briefly existing NHL team in KC. By the way, before we get to a couple more of these questions from David, who's watching along on Facebook today from Cedar Hill, Texas. David, thank you for hanging out with us. Appreciate that.
Don't know where that is, but Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas.
Hey, we've gone worldwide. Yeah, I'm not going to be quite as far down as Texas coming up on tomorrow afternoon when I'm down for Washburn basketball. Still quite a ways. You ever been to Texas before?
No, I was supposed to have a layover in Texas, but that didn't happen.
It's down near, from what I can tell, near-ish to Dallas. I believe that is correct. David, you can correct if I'm wrong.
I was supposed to go to Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, have a layover there, but thanks, COVID.
Beautiful DFW. So no, we appreciate all you guys for watching along or listening along from wherever you are watching or listening from today. We've got another one here that I wanted to get to. Spencer, this is one for you from the 785 on the text line. The Olympics. Are you 3 parts here? A, do you enjoy them in general? B, winter or summer? C, what's your preferred Olympic event?
I do enjoy the Olympics. I do think it's hard to watch them in this age if they're in a different country that's 12 hours ahead of us. So that's the one thing I don't enjoy about them, because sometimes it'll be at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. our time, or whatever. I do enjoy both. When I was growing up, I was a big swimmer. I swam every summer in my community swim league. So big Michael Phelps fan. But I'm also a big Olympic hockey fan.
I figured that would probably be the case.
I think we're just coming up on, I think it was just 7 or 8 years ago, TJ Oshie was America's hero.
I think 8 years.
A couple days ago.
Yeah.
It was either yesterday or the day before. It was 8 years ago. Yeah.
I think it was 8. Yeah, I remember that. That was awesome.
Fun fact.
Very fun fact. I'm a much bigger fan of the Summer Olympics. Winter's cool. I watch them, but I'm much bigger fan of the Summer Olympics. Volleyball. Got to be volleyball. I played indoor. I prefer the indoor game, but watching outdoor volleyball players do what they do is unbelievable. So men's or women's, volleyball is always my number one. One other one here from Vance, who asks on YouTube, how acclimated are you feeling to our local sports scene now? The local high school teams, KU, K-State, the Chiefs. How comfortable are you feeling now with the new teams that you're covering?
A little bit better. We're going to get into some basketball play-by-play here soon.
That's right.
With Sub-State coming up. So excited for that. Definitely like going to KU, covering some games. I think I'll be out of Bramlage here, not this Monday, but the next Monday.
Next Monday, yeah.
For Big Monday against West Virginia. Excited for that one. But definitely getting into things. Can't wait for the Royal season to start. So
a Royal season that is actually going to feel meaningful and have purpose to it. I'm barely even used to that.
I'm excited to try to get down to Kansas City and see the Nationals when they come to town.
A couple other quick ones here from the 785. They say they love curling in the Winter Olympics. I don't remember if it was the last Winter Olympics or the one before. It must have been 2 ago. I remember staying up to all hours of the night to watch curling at like 4 a.m. It was awesome. It was incredible. That was the U.S. Olympic team that was really, really good that year. Then another one, giving a shout out to the Whataburger on Broadway in Edmond. Yeah, the Edmond Whataburger has gotten a lot of my money over time. Pretty much any time we go down to Dallas, OKC, Edmond, anywhere down there, we stop at the Whataburger. We're going to take another time out here on 580 Sports Talk. If you have any other questions for us, send them our way. Send them in. We'll try to get as many as we can before we send you off to high school hoops tonight. We're back after this with the final word on 580 Sports Talk. Time to wrap up 580 Sports Talk on this Feel Good Friday afternoon. Thank you so much for hanging out with us over the course of the week. What a week it was, recapping Super Bowl 58. We are off on Monday. We will be back coming up next Tuesday. We'll have plenty of Chiefs offseason preview to get to. Matt Verderam will join us, Michael Swain, and a whole lot more next week on 580 Sports Talk. Don't forget, the Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader is coming up here in just a matter of moments. First things first, though, Spencer, let's get your final word.
My final word is that finally getting things together in the apartment for
Love that.
What we can do for the next few months before we make another transition. But it's a long-ish weekend for me. I got to come in a little bit, do some work on Monday, but not a full day of work. So Oppenheimer is out on Peacock.
There we go.
Shout out to Mama for letting me use her Peacock for the Chiefs game a few weeks, the first round of the playoffs. So I still have that. Going to tune into that. And network TV shows are back. Two of my favorites on tonight: CBS, SWAT, and Fire Country.
There we go.
Yeah,
big weekend coming up at the Dupuy House.
Yeah.
My final word for the week is just big thank you to you guys for following along all week long. Been a lot of fun, always is. We are very spoiled to get to cover a team that continually wins Super Bowls. Obviously, a very trying day on Wednesday as well. And, frankly, life did not go the way we had hoped for, but appreciate you guys for hanging out with us, chatting with us, and being a part of the show. It is a blast to get to do this every day with you, and it is a blast to get to cover a team that is as impressive as these Kansas City Chiefs are. That does it, though, for 580 Sports Talk today. Spencer, put a pin in this. We got a text in. Want to hear about your trip into the Midwest coming up next week when we do Ask Me Anything. We got a texter ask about that. Keep that in mind for Friday next week. Until we get there, though, we are going to wrap up 580 Sports Talk for this week. Again, off Monday. We're back Tuesday, so enjoy the 3-day weekend if you have it. Take some time for yourself. Do something nice for yourself one way or the other. For Dan Lucero, for Spencer Dupuy, I am Brendan Dworzynski. We're going to take a quick time out. When we come back, we will send you to Washburn Rural High School, the Washburn Rural Activity Center, the House of Blues, for tonight's Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader, our penultimate Game of the Week doubleheader for the season, Centennial League play between the Manhattan Indians and the Washburn Rural Junior Blues. That's coming up right after this quick break. You're listening to 580 WIBW.